Chapter 693. At dusk, the Emerald Forest was covered in a peaceful twilight. The elves had a long lifespan, and the pace of their lives was slow and leisurely. Almost no one was diligent in training. Everyone liked to play with flowers and plants, study carving, music, or other arts. At this time, an elderly elf passed by the princess' treehouse with 2 books in his hands. He asked 2 elven patrolling guards, "Why didn't I see little Princess Vivian? She's usually very active. I saw her a few minutes ago. She went back to the treehouse. This girl's toy was borrowed by someone. She's probably angry now. But according to her usual habits, she'll be fine in 2 days. Don't go and touch her now, or you'll be in trouble." "We know." The elderly elf looked up at the treehouse, shook his head, and left. Actually, the entire tribe did not know that Vivian had already quietly slipped away. She took advantage of when no one was paying attention and used her innate spatial energy to secretly leave the tribe. In a short period of time, she passed through the forest and trekked through several dangerous areas to the north, finally arriving at the border of the southern summer country's southern state region. Is this the human country in front of us? The sky was already dark. Vivian stood on her tiptoes on a mountain peak and looked into the distance. She could vaguely see the lights of the southern summer country's southern border posts. The little princess couldn't help feeling nervous. She had learned some information about the humans from the tribe's elders. Humans were a very complex life form. Whether it was their appearance or their character, they were not evenly distributed. There were beautiful women like Princess Meng Yingying in the movies, there were ugly monsters like the Scarlet Moon religion leader, there were selfless warriors like Chu Tian in the movies, and there were also treacherous and vicious bad people. In short, good, evil, ugly, and beautiful had never been reflected so vividly in a race. This was something that could not be seen in other races, so humans were the most complex race. It was because of this that their movies were so popular. Although there were many good people in the human race, the elves all believed that humans were greedy and treacherous, so the elves did not have a good impression of humans. This was also the reason why the elves were so determined to break off relations with humans and not interact with them. Little Princess Vivian had heard and seen for a long time, so she was naturally nervous and afraid of humans. It was said that there were some evil and daring human bandits that would attack the elven tribes and kidnap the beautiful elven girls, just to satisfy the desires of the human nobles. Just thinking about it was terrifying. If it wasn't for Chu Tian being here, Vivian would not have come into contact with humans at all. How could the little princess know that the southern summer country was a weak little kingdom? Even if the peak experts, the 3 rulers of the southern summer country worked together, they still wouldn't have the qualifications to exchange blows with her. With her innate spatial energy that was rarely seen on the continent, how many people on the continent could catch her? The little princess did not dare move forward. She found a rock covered in moss on the cliff and sat down. She took out the magnetic sound machine from her chest and carefully adjusted it. She muttered to herself, "I don't know if I can receive a signal here. No matter, I'll give it a try." Z, Z, Z. Z, 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 Z. The magnetic sound machine continued to release a chaotic noise. The little princess slightly knit her brows. Was the distance still too far? While the little princess was a bit depressed, the magnetic sound machine suddenly responded. She heard a light and cheerful music that came from the magnetic sound machine. "Ayaya, I can really hear it." The little princess excitedly jumped up and immediately switched channels. She found that there were quite a few channels that she could receive. Chu Tian is truly the #1 genius on the continent. He can actually invent such a great thing, this is truly great. Vivian was so excited that she wanted to shout out loud. The little princess began to look for the content she liked on Miracle Broadcasting. The signal source of Miracle Broadcasting was clearly from Central State, so the station was broadcasting a lot of Central State news and information. Vivian had never been to the human world before, so even the most boring information was a very new experience for her. So the humans made a large theater that can hold several hundred and over 1,000 people. It would be great if our tribe had this kind of theater. Those fellows wouldn't have stolen my video disc player. Wah! Powerful. Powerful. Did Chu Tian invent something called a communication device? Even if they are separated by tens of thousands of miles, he really is worthy of being the person this princess admires. If the Elven tribe had this kind of thing, the Elven Council wouldn't need to be this troublesome in the future. Little Princess Vivian was like a curious explorer. She sat alone on the pitch-black peak, searching in a daze. The information sent from the human world was like a whole new world for the little princess who had never left the forest before. It completely changed little Princess Vivian's view of the world. She had never seen the world as clearly as she did today. The sky gradually brightened. She had to quickly return. Little Princess Vivian carefully placed the magnetic recording machine in her pocket and jumped off the cliff, instantly disappearing into the air. Ever since she experienced this different night, Vivian could not stop. Every night, she would spend a lot of effort to secretly go to the southern summer country's border and listen to the news from the southern summer country. The elves were very open-minded, but they forbade their clansmen from coming into contact with the outside world, especially with humans. If Vivian was discovered, the consequences would not be a joke. This violated the highest ban of the elves and it would even be reported to the Elven Council. But Vivian did not care about this. She could not resist the temptation of that mysterious world. Princess Vivian came here that night. When she was about to choose the content she liked to listen to, there was a program about Miracle Commerce's founder, Chu Tian's growth. There were large amounts of views and evaluations from the Heavens Alliance members. This Heavens Alliance was an organization formed by Chu Tian's admirers in the southern summer country, so naturally it attracted the little princess' interest. Chu Tian's experiences are so legendary. The little princess knew that Chu Tian was an abandoned child of the central state city Chu family. His parents had been killed and he had been reduced to a slave. He had coincidentally met Meng Yingying and finally managed to create such a large business. Life is always more legendary than stories. The little princess listened with great interest. Especially the series of things that Chu Tian did afterwards, it made the little princess admire him even more. The little princess could be said to be the most rebellious of the wood elves, so Chu Tian's unruly and unyielding nature suited the little princess' taste. Not to mention that he was this talented. Powerful, powerful. He really was worthy of being the person who invented movies and the magnetic sound machine. After paying attention for several days, the little princess understood Chu Tian more and understood Miracle Commerce more and more. She knew who the high-level members of Miracle Commerce were and what they had done. It was as if she was familiar with them. She had already deeply understood Miracle Commerce's charm. This kind of happy and nervous time passed very quickly. The sun was about to rise again. The little princess reluctantly put away the magnetic sound machine and prepared to return to the tribe to come back tomorrow. At this time, a small advertisement from Miracle Commerce caught the little princess' attention. Are you troubled by your mediocre career? Are you troubled by a lack of passion in your life? Are you confused by the monotonous repetition of your days? Miracle Commerce's mercenary group, the Chu sect, is recruiting talented people. No matter how low your background is, no matter how high your status is, no matter how strong your cultivation base is, no matter how old you are, no matter where you come from, as long as you have a skill, you will have the chance to become a member of Miracle Commerce. Let us witness a great miracle together and create a great miracle empire together. At this moment, Vivian's heart began to beat faster. The elves had a very long lifespan, living for at least 500-600 years. If one's cultivation base was a bit higher, living for 1,000 years was not a problem. The elves had a long lifespan, so they could accumulate a large amount of knowledge. But Vivian did not understand, why would one of the most intelligent races on the continent like to live in seclusion? If the elves were like Chu Tian and used their knowledge and wisdom to benefit the world, wouldn't that be a better choice? If they could go to the continent and achieve great feats that people would envy, then their existence in this world would not be in vain. Vivian gave a soft sigh. Unfortunately, the rules of the elves were very strict. The elders wouldn't allow elves to participate in worldly pursuits and battles. Vivian didn't expect to convince those old fogies. If the elders found out about this, she would be put under house arrest for 8 to 10 years. Vivian turned off the magnetic recording machine and returned to the tribe with a worried expression. For the first time, she began to doubt the iron law of the elves. The next day, when Vivian was prepared to listen to the program, the content of the radio station had completely changed. It was almost completely reporting the situation in the north, saying that the southern summer countries north had been invaded by spirit beasts and even the kingdom's capital had been defeated. Cruel spirit beasts. This was truly hateful. There were many spirit beasts living in the chaotic forest, and none of these spirit beasts were good things. They were synonymous with bandits. She never thought that even the southern summer country would be bullied by the spirit beasts. The little princess was worried that Chu Tian would be in danger in the southern summer country. In the next few days, the little princess had been paying attention to the situation through the radio. On this night, the Miracle Broadcasting Station released a large amount of urgent purchasing information. Miracle Commerce's chairman Chu Tian has been heavily injured fighting the spirit beasts on the front lines. He needs a level 2 immortal herb that can restore his innate vitality. What? Chu Tian was heavily injured. Vivian was instantly filled with worry. What should she do? She returned to the treehouse to think about it for the entire night. Chu Tian's current situation was very difficult and he needed help. This favor, she, Princess Vivian, could help him. If she brought the medicine to him, he would be very grateful, and Princess Vivian could use this chance to get to know Chu Tian. Only if she did this, the risk was very, very large. She couldn't care about that right now. Chapter 694. The warhounds could attack at any time. The development of Central State could not be slow. Meng Qinggu had been observing the data from all sides, and she had to admit that war was the strongest catalyst for the development of a civilization. With the threat of the warhounds, Central State was united. In just a short half a month, not only had everyone's cultivation base increased by a level, the Central State Yun sect continued to produce results, and the industrial development increased by leaps and bounds. With all the resources from all sides working together, the production efficiency had increased by around 3 times. Not bad, very good. With this speed, if the warhounds gave them another 10 days to half a month, Central State would be impregnable and the warhounds would not be able to easily break through. Meng Qingwu's biggest headache was not the warhounds in the north. Miracle Commerce's new strategy had already been decided, and the Forest of Chaos would be the place where Miracle Commerce would truly rise. Only how to enter this area was Miracle Commerce's #1 problem. Chu Tian's method was too risky. The elves were a race with a strong sense of defense and did not trust outsiders easily, so they were closed off to outsiders. Meng Qinggu thought that if they wanted to gain the elves' trust and support, they had to slowly eliminate the elves' suspicions and let them recognize Miracle Commerce and accept them. Chu Tian directly pulled Princess Vivian into his group, not leaving any room for negotiation. Did he consider Vivian's identity? Did he really consider the feelings of the elves' conservative faction? This would not be able to win the elves over to become allies, rather it would cause the elves to be hostile towards them. What were they busy with right now? Meng Qinggu took out the communication device to contact Yingying. She found out that Yingying was with Chu Tian and Vivian in the Yun sect. What were they doing in the Yun sect? Meng Qinggu curiously went over to see what was going on. Chu Tian had opened a special laboratory for Vivian and was currently teaching the little princess how to use this super modern laboratory. This is the spatial laboratory that the Yun sect has specially prepared for Vivian. I'll leave it to you to manage after tonight. When Chu Tian said this, his voice suddenly changed. To make it easier for you to work, I'll have the young miss and Yingying assist you. Vivian had a look of pleasant surprise as she touched the laboratory here and there. There were quite a few new things here that couldn't be seen in the elven tribes. Vivian had just been accepted into Miracle Commerce by Chu Tian and she already had a special laboratory. Her identity became even stronger. Ah, what did you say? Vivian was suddenly stunned. How can this be? Ying and elder sister Qinggu are the founders of Miracle Commerce and I'm just a newcomer. Vivian was already used to calling Meng Qinggu elder sister, even though she was old enough to be Meng Qingwu's grandmother. Meng Qingwu also gave a bitter smile. The capable one comes first, little princess doesn't need to be modest. But. Vivian scratched her head in an embarrassed manner as her white cheeks turned red. Although I've lived for 14 elven years, I can't even compare to Ying in terms of knowledge. Not to mention managing a laboratory, I'm afraid I can't even be a normal researcher. This was definitely the truth. Meng Ying had copied Meng Qingwu's heavenly book source spirit to increase her learning ability, so her knowledge would not lose to a normal Yun sect scholar. On the other hand, Vivian was several times Ying's age, but she had lived in the elven environment since she was young, so how could she have the mind to study? Vivian's strength could not compare to anyone, but her knowledge was far inferior. Meng Qingwu was very curious. Little Princess Vivian was not good at science, so why did she prepare a laboratory? What was Chu Tian thinking? Vivian was very embarrassed. How about this laboratory? We don't need it for now. My cultivation base is not bad, so if you want to fight, I might be able to help. Let's say it like this. Even if you invite the most knowledgeable old scholar of your elven race, there wouldn't be much of a difference in my eyes. You have a special potential that normal people don't have. Chu Tian encouraged Vivian. You are unique, I believe you can do things that other people can't do. Vivian's heart was instantly moved to the point of bursting. She was synonymous with trouble in the elven tribe and even she had given up on herself. She never thought that there would be someone who appreciated her this much, not to mention that this person was her most respected idol. What special potential do I have? Your innate spatial energy. What Chu Tian wanted to teach Vivian was actually the knowledge of the spatial system. This was a hard-to-form knowledge in 20,000 years. Whether it was a world-famous scholar or a normal person like Vivian, there was no difference. In order to let you have a deeper understanding of your own potential, I will first arrange a small mission for you. Chu Tian gave a set of very complicated blueprints to Vivian. This is the third-level spatial source energy array's blueprint. Your first task is to complete the array and you'll understand my meaning at that time. Spatial source energy array. Everyone was shocked. They had heard of fire source energy arrays, wind source energy arrays, and ice source energy arrays. As for spatial source energy arrays, they had never heard of them before. It could even be said to be a fantasy. Spatial energy was recognized as the hardest attribute to control. Wanting to use a source energy array to create spatial energy, was this really possible? Vivian held the complicated blueprints and said, "What kind of array does this have?" Chu Tian gave Vivian an encouraging look. Don't ask too much, just give it a try. No matter how bad one's knowledge was, they still had the basic ability to draw a source energy array. Chu Tian had already given a detailed blueprint and Vivian just needed to draw the array according to the blueprint. With her true spirit realm and mind's lamp realm divine sense, this was not a hard thing to do. This source energy array was clearly not normal. The materials Chu Tian prepared were all precious level 3 materials. Other than that, he used 4 giant source energy batteries to form a system to replenish the energy of this source energy array. I'm going to start. Vivian's little face tensed up. This was her first time showing her strength. She couldn't drop the ball at this critical moment. She released her divine sense. The strength of her divine sense was no weaker than Chu Tian's. In fact, it was even stronger than Chu Tian's. After scanning through the blueprint once, every detail was memorized in her mind. Rise! The crystal stone pen was raised. Vivian directly used her divine sense to control it, drawing it on a piece of stone specially used to hold source energy arrays. After around 30 minutes, a complex and complete spatial source energy array was formed. Meng Qingwu found it hard to hide the shock in her heart when she saw the source energy array. Meng Qingwu was not a simple woman, she could be considered half a disciple of Chu Tian. Of miracle commerce's current technology, the only one who had a complete grasp of it was Meng Qingwu. Meng Qingwu's strong learning ability and heavenly book memories allowed her to surpass top scholars like Gu Qianqiu and Yun Tianhe in a short period of time. This spatial source energy array was something she had never heard of before. It wasn't that Meng Qingwu had never seen a level 3 array before, but she had never seen one this complex. All of the components and structures were very unique. If this array was seen by those old things, they would go crazy from excitement. Vivian wiped her sweat and said with a face filled with surprise, "This is the most complex source energy array I've ever seen, but what use does it have?" "Don't worry." Chu Tian said to Meng Yingying, who was beside him, "Yingying, help me turn on the energy pillars." "All right." Meng Yingying quickly turned on the switch of the source energy batteries. The 4 energy pillars simultaneously released a powerful energy. After the complex spatial array was activated, it instantly transformed into an incredible amount of energy. The violent energy waves interfered with the spatial fluctuations. When the spatial distortion became more and more intense, it unexpectedly created a black hole-like hole. Meng Qingwu and Meng Yingying couldn't feel it, but Vivian clearly felt it. This black hole-like spatial structure is a stable subspace, similar to the storage space in storage equipment. "My God, it's too big, it's at least 10 feet wide and tall." "What did you say?" Meng Qingwu's eyes almost popped out. "This is a storage space." Vivian's face was filled with excitement as she nodded. "That's right, I understand. This source energy array's use is to create a stable subspace. I have never seen such a mysterious source energy array before. It can actually create a stable subspace. Once this subspace is formed, it is no different from a storage equipment." How expensive was a storage equipment? It could be considered priceless. In the entire southern summer country, there weren't many storage equipment like this. The reason why storage equipment was so precious was because they were all made from spatial materials that contained spatial energy. This kind of material could not be found in the entire continent. Now that Chu Tian had easily created a subspace, it was actually so big, it was hard to imagine. Chu Tian said with a nod, "This is a subspace formation array. It is used to create a small subspace. The more energy it provides, the larger the subspace. We can completely rely on this technology to create a space warehouse. But compared to storage equipment, the space warehouse's flexibility is far inferior. This technology has a lot of prospects." Chu Tian gave a simple introduction. "I'll give you an example. We can easily transport items to any corner of the continent through the subspace. This also means that if we store things here, we can open a subspace on the other side of the continent and take them out." This was more than just prospects. If Chu Tian's communication technology could allow the exchange of information on the continent, then this spatial technology could allow the exchange of materials, allowing products from all over the world to flow quickly. Not only did it contain a large business opportunity, it would also lead to an irresistible revolution. "I have a complete theoretical foundation, but the technology isn't stable enough." Chu Tian looked at little Princess Vivian. "I need your talent and ability to perfect this great technology with me. This spatial research room is for this purpose. Are you willing to accept this job?" Vivian was at a loss for words. She had only joined Miracle Commerce for a day. Giving her this kind of important technology, this showed how much importance he placed on Vivian. Vivian could clearly feel that this was a chance to change the continent. Chapter 695. Level 2 immortal herbs were very precious and there were several that met the requirements, but they were all in the hands of the elven elders. Vivian did not have the ability to trick them, so she could only steal them. This herb was raised by the tribe every day and consumed large amounts of resources every year. Actually, the elven elders did not have any use for it, which elven elder didn't have a true spirit realm cultivation. Rather than wasting a heavenly treasure, it was better to display a higher value. But which elder's herb was the best to steal? The elven elders were not good to provoke. She had the best relationship with the third elder Aubersen, and there was an immortal herb in Aubersen's garden, so he deserved to be unlucky this time. In the dead of night, Vivian left the treehouse and quietly sneaked into Elder Aubersen's herb garden. This herb garden's defenses were very tight. The outermost layer was an illusion array that made it impossible for people to see the situation in the herb garden. There was a strong barrier inside the illusion array that even a true spirit expert would find hard to break. There were also several layers of alarms and defensive traps, as well as puppets patrolling the interior of the herb garden. Each herb was surrounded by a restriction. With this kind of perfect defense, the chances of it being stolen were almost zero. Even if someone tried to break into the herb garden, it was impossible for them not to set off an alarm. Once they set off, Aubersen would notice them. However, this was not a problem for little Princess Vivian. She was a heavenly gifted spatial energy user, so these outer defenses were nothing to the little princess. Poochie. Space was cut open like a piece of cloth. The little princess directly entered Elder Aubersen's herb garden. The entire herb garden was covered in a dense aura, and there were only several dozen herbs, but each one was a very rare treasure. Vivian found an immortal herb that Aubersen had taken 80 years ago from an ancient ruin, the longevity grass. The longevity grass, its name seemed normal, but it was a genuine immortal herb. It said that this herb contained a strong innate vitality, enough to make up for any innate or acquired defects, increasing one's lifespan by 5%. The strong spirit energy contained within was enough for an awakened soul cultivator to easily break through their bottleneck. Very good. It's you. The little princess held a dagger in the air and deftly bypassed the restriction. Using a spatial layer, the entire herb was perfectly cut out, not even a single root was left. The soil of the immortal herb did not show any signs of being moved. The herb was not pulled out, but rather it was moved on a spatial layer. This was something only Vivian could do in the entire forest, therefore the restriction Aubersen left behind would not be touched. Elder Aubersen, don't blame me. Royal Father always said to plant good karma, so I took your herb to save Chu Tian, that is also planting a kind of good karma. The immortal herb was in her hands. Vivian left the tribe that night. This was because the little princess knew that the matter of stealing the herb could not be hidden for long. If Aubersen found out that the immortal herb he had cultivated for 80 years had been stolen, he would go crazy with anger. She had to quickly send the herb to Chu Tian's hands to avoid any future worries. The little princess passed through the forest and gathered the courage to enter the southern summer country for the first time. Finally she arrived in Central State and the sky was already bright. Even if the little princess had an innate spatial energy, she was still tired after a night of traveling. Where does Chu Tian live? The southern summer country was in a state of war, so Central State did not have its usual bustling scene. Adding in the fact that it was only 4 in the morning, most people were closed up, so Central State City was very deserted. This was the little princess' first time in a human city. The stone houses the humans lived in were very strange, being densely packed together. There were not many trees in the city, so she was not used to it. Was it comfortable to live in these densely packed tall and large stone houses? There were no leaves, no grass, no gardens, no wells, no tree houses, no birds to accompany them. Several hundred people squeezed together, just thinking about it made her feel strange. Humans were truly strange. Where did Chu Tian live? Vivian closed her eyes and lit her mind's lamp. Her divine sense was very strong, instantly sweeping over half the city. What surprised the little princess was that these humans were so weak. They were unbelievably weak. How could there be such a weak country in this world? Vivian did not have any concept of the continent's power hierarchy, so she did not know that the small kingdoms were the lowest power. The southern summer humans were actually this weak, no wonder they were bullied by the spirit beast kingdom. After the little princess learned of the southern summer people's strength, her confidence increased. Because in Central State City, there was no one that could threaten her, so she could lock onto the strongest expert and head in his direction. With Chu Tian's high status in the southern summer country, finding the strongest expert was the right choice. In the Southern Summer King's temporary palace, Dong Fang Gan was dealing with military affairs overnight. While Dong Fang Gan was analyzing the situation. "Hey, hello." Suddenly, a weak and sweet girl's voice sounded in his ears. Dong Fang Gan was shocked to find a petite figure standing 2-3 meters away from him. Dong Fang Gan's face fell as he threw out the pen in his hand like a dart. No matter who it was, for a person to suddenly appear in the middle of the night, they would have the same reaction as Dong Fang Gan. Dong Fang Gan's cultivation was in the second true spirit realm, and he was the person with the highest cultivation in the Southern Summer Country. The other party was standing 3 meters away from him, but he could not feel her aura at all. What did this mean? Either she was a very skilled assassin, or she was an expert with a very high cultivation. Or perhaps it was both. Anyways, to be able to appear in front of Dong Fang Gan without alerting the guards outside, she was definitely not an ordinary person. The little princess didn't care at all. She stretched out 2 fingers and caught the brush that Dong Fang Qian had thrown. Dong Fang Gan gave a low roar and his spirit energy instantly erupted. The Dong Fang family's armament source spirit turned into a long spear that pierced at the little princess. "Why are you hitting me?" Vivian raised her hand and the space in front of her shattered. The long spear pierced through the shattered space and came out from behind Dong Fang Gan. In the end, it landed on Dong Fang Gan's body and Dong Fang Gan was instantly injured by his own attack. "Just who are you?" "I'm here to deliver medicine to Chu Tian." Vivian held a wooden box in her hand and said in an unfamiliar human language, "Do you know where Chu Tian is?" "Deliver medicine." When Dong Fang Qian saw Vivian open the wooden box, a dense aura immediately spread out, instantly enveloping the entire room. Dong Fang Qian's injuries were covered by this aura, and it only took a moment for him to recover. This medicine was, the door was suddenly pushed open and several dozen Dong Fang family guards charged in, loudly shouting, "Catch the assassin!" "Stop!" Dong Fang Gan immediately stopped them. "If this fellow wanted him, these people couldn't stop him. This isn't the time, go find Miracle Commerce's people." Meng Yingying was tossing and turning on the bed. With the recent events, she had been worried for several days without sleeping. Now that Chu Tian was sick, Meng Yingying was filled with panic. She didn't know if Chu Tian could make it through. It was said that the Warhound's army had been plundering merchant ships, clearly wanting to borrow ships to head south. If there was no Chu Tian, could they stop the fierce Warhound's kingdom? At this time, the news was sent to Meng Yingying. It was said that an outsider had come to Central State to deliver medicine. Meng Yingying first pinched herself, and when she was sure that she wasn't dreaming, she jumped up in joy. She immediately put on some clothes and rushed to Dong Fang Gan's palace. She saw that her elder sister had already arrived. At this moment, Meng Qingwu's face was full of excitement and her body was even trembling. She was holding a simple little wooden box in her hands. Even her usually calm and composed sister was so happy, so the little wooden box must contain the immortal elixir. "Ah! Aren't you Princess Meng Yingying?" Meng Yingying found a girl that seemed to be 1 or 2 years younger than her. She had dark green hair and a bright wreath on her head. Her clothes were made from elite green leaves and she had a pair of snow-white feet. She was very beautiful and her ears were long and pointed. She was currently sitting on a stool holding a teacup and her jade-like eyes were curiously looking at the humans around her. When this strange-dressed person saw Meng Yingying, her eyes immediately lit up. Her snow-white feet stepped on the ground and she ran over to Meng Yingying with a face filled with joy. She carefully looked Meng Yingying up and down. "You're even more beautiful than in the movies. Me and my sisters really like you. I never thought that I would see you in person, this is too great." Meng Yingying was a bit embarrassed and a bit confused. Just who was this person? "Yingying, this is the Wood Elf race's Princess Vivian." Meng Qingwu walked over and said to her little sister, "It's her who brought the immortal herb to Chu Tian, she is our Miracle Commerce's great benefactor." "Elf princess?" Meng Yingying was shocked. This was a real princess and she, Yingying, was just a fake. Meng Yingying did not dare neglect and quickly said, "Big sister princess, oh no, I should call you grandma princess. I am Meng Yingying, thank you for saving Chu Tian." The little princess' face fell and she indignantly said, "What grandma? How do I look like a grandma?" The little princess was a bit unhappy. Dongfang Gan's heart skipped a beat. This little elf looked harmless, but her cultivation was unfathomable. If he accidentally angered her, the consequences would be unimaginable. Meng Yingying scratched her head and quickly apologized, I'm sorry. The elves' lifespans are different from humans, I don't know what to call you." The elves' lifespans were much longer than humans. The little princess looked like a 13-14-year-old human, but she was actually 60-70 years old. Meng Yingying had just turned 16, was it wrong to call her grandma? It seemed like whether it was humans or elves, they didn't like being called old. Forget it. The little princess did not care and impatiently said, "Why isn't Chu Tian here yet? I want to see him." Chapter 696. I will definitely complete this task. Vivian's back was straight and her face was completely red as she loudly shouted out like she was making a vow. Meng Qingwu's heart was set. Vivian had already entered her role. Chu Tian was prepared to train Vivian into Miracle Commerce's first spatial engineer. Because Meng Yingying could duplicate source spirits, she could also use spatial abilities. Only because she wasn't strong enough, she couldn't control the space and could only provide some basic support. Meng Qingwu was responsible for coordinating the resources and building a complete space warehouse in the shortest amount of time. How could Vivian not be excited? She had traveled tens of thousands of miles to the southern summer country, even ignoring the danger of being punished by her clansmen, but now it seemed like it was all worth it. She was like a lost traveler that had suddenly found her goal. Vivian vowed that she would not disappoint Chu Tian's expectations. The elves were not interested in leaving their names in history, but they could not reject something that would benefit their future generations. Once this space warehouse was completed, the clansmen would be shocked. At that time, I will build a space warehouse in my tribe and let the elves experience the benefits of the space warehouse. At that time, who would dare to gossip about me? After all, to the elves, the space warehouse was a dream-like item. The elves did not like coming into contact with the outside world and wanted to change their quality of life. This was something that was hard to achieve in the past. But it was different now. The elves did not need to come into contact with other races. As long as they had the space warehouse and communication equipment, if they wanted to buy materials or supplies in the future, they just needed to make a call and send enough source stones into the space warehouse to receive the goods from the other side. How convenient! How beautiful! Not only would it not destroy the peaceful life the elves yearned for, it would also allow the elves to sell their specialties and it would allow the rich resources of the outside world to flow into the elves, making the elves richer, stronger, and richer in life. Even the most inflexible old elves would not reject this kind of good thing. If Vivian could help the elves become the first to benefit from the spatial technology, she would become one of the greatest heroes in the history of the elves. The pioneers were always the biggest beneficiaries. The elves dared to be the first to become rich and powerful before the other forces and kingdoms could react. At this point, Vivian no longer wanted to go home. Even if her royal father came, she would not leave. Vivian looked at Chu Tian like she was looking at a spiritual god. I never thought that you could even create a space. Is there anything you can't do in this world? Although I don't deny that I am very strong, this source energy array is not creating a subspace, it is just borrowing space. Chu Tian gave a laugh. Although the little elf's worship was very useful, Chu Tian still needed to spread the knowledge of spatial technology. I do have a way to create space, but with the power of a third-level source energy array, it is far from reaching the goal of creating space. I can only borrow existing space. Borrow? What do you mean borrow? The spatial domain is incomparably profound, it is not something you can grasp in a day. But since I have time, I'll explain a bit to you. Chu Tian pointed at the spatial source energy array on the ground and said, "This source energy array looks like a storage space on the surface, but it is not actually creating space. It is just capturing a subspace, and this subspace has already existed for a long time." Chu Tian explained the basic understanding of space to the three of them. Originally, this world was like a giant bubble. When the great ancient world collapsed, the large bubble turned into countless small bubbles, and these small bubbles separated to form different planes. Each independent small bubble had countless small bubbles attached to it. There were very few small bubbles that could mature into a spatial structure. After these mature spaces were captured, they could be used to create various secret realms. However, most of the small bubbles were very small, so they could not completely develop spatial laws. So, they could not be used to create a subspace filled with life energy. The space warehouse was a technology that used subspace. This source energy array captured and stabilized the subspace, opening a passage to the subspace and using it to store things. So it's like this. The three of them suddenly understood. Although it was only the most basic knowledge of space science, it was too advanced for the three of them. It was like they had touched a whole new world. Because the subspace itself exists, even if we close the source energy array, the things we store will not disappear. We can just open it when we need to take things out. Meng Qinggu sincerely sighed, "This really is a safe and perfect technology." Meng Qinggu had just discovered that maintaining this subspace required a large amount of energy. The 4 energy pillars had already been consumed by half in a short while. Although the cost of energy in this era was low, it couldn't be used like this. If the loss of energy would cause the space warehouse to collapse, then it would be too unsafe. If it was attacked or malfunctioned, then wouldn't the things inside the space warehouse be lost? After understanding the specific principles, Meng Qinggu was completely relieved. Once this space technology was successfully developed, then it would have a very wide range of uses. Chu Tian said, "This technology is very attractive, but there are many problems that need to be solved." Meng Yingying was puzzled. "I think it's very perfect, why can't we use it immediately?" "There are 2 problems that need to be solved." Chu Tian explained. "First, there are hundreds of millions of subspaces floating in this world. They are all different in size and are all different. If we use this array to directly summon them, then it will be full of uncertainty. This time we can capture this space, next time we can capture another space. If we can't accurately identify the space, then this technology is meaningless. So it's like this." "Then what about the second problem?" "The second problem is for the future. We need to prevent illegal summons, like our space warehouse being stolen by others. Although it is hard to do with technology and probability, we have to prepare ahead of time." Since Chu Tian decided to develop the space technology, he had to do his best to make it perfect. This was because the space technology was not the same as the previous technology. The previous technology could only be considered low-end technology, they could all be replaced by higher-level technology. Only the space technology was high-end technology that could not be replaced. The space technology had limitless possibilities and he had planned on personally making it. But the starting point of the space technology was level 3 and Chu Tian still needed a bit of time to break through to the true spirit realm. Adding in the importance of the elves in Miracle Commerce's strategy, Chu Tian decided to give some low-end space technology to Vivian. This would be an important chip to win over the elves in the future. Vivian's cultivation was not weak, she had innate spatial energy, was the elven princess, and was a simple person. Adding in Miracle Commerce's strategy, she met all the requirements. Chu Tian said to Vivian, "If you want to become a qualified space engineer, you have to learn how to find subspaces, mark subspaces, and modify subspaces. From today onwards, I will start from zero and only teach you the basics of space technology. Miracle Commerce's first space warehouse will be given to you." Vivian's face turned red. She felt like her blood was boiling. The continent's first space engineer. "I'm going to be the continent's first space engineer." Vivian almost couldn't suppress her ecstasy and excitement. She wanted to roar and vent her emotions. Calm down, I have to calm down. I am now an important person in miracle commerce. Chu Tian definitely doesn't want to give this kind of important technology to an immature person. Chu Tian looked at the little elf who was about to suffer internal injuries and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Alright, let's continue talking about the basics of space technology. Learn as much as you can, and if you don't understand anything, you can find the young miss. Her source spirit is special and her learning ability is 100 times faster than yours. What you don't understand, she will definitely understand. He didn't even finish speaking. Suddenly, a griffin knight rushed over to the Yun sect. Greetings to the country guarding ruler, Cloud Dream Marquis. Urgent military report. His Majesty is asking the two of you to quickly head over. Meng Qinggu was a bit stunned. What happened? The Griffin Knight had a serious expression. The Warhound's fleet has been detected. I'm afraid the decisive battle is about to begin. They really know how to pick the right time. Chu Tian gloomily shook his head. He had an apologetic look as he said to the little elf, I'm sorry, I'll be busy for the next few days, so I'll have to slow down the teaching matter. Vivian's eyes were about to spit out flames. Damn! 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 These disgusting dirty spirit beasts, they could have come at any time, but they had to come at this princess' most important moment. This angers me to death, I'll definitely kill them all. Meng Qinggu looked at the angry little elf and her heart slightly moved. She tried to persuade her, the southern summer country is about to fight the warhounds. This battle will be very dangerous and Central State will become the battlefield. You are an outsider, so it's inconvenient for you to get involved. How about you leave for a few days and come back after this matter is over? How can I do this? I've already joined Miracle Commerce. Vivian was worried that the spirit beasts would cause trouble for Miracle Commerce. When she saw that Meng Qinggu was about to speak, she quickly cut her off and said, Don't say any more, I have to fight the spirit beasts with you this time. Actually Vivian have always hated the spirit beasts, I can't wait to exterminate them all. Vivian strongly expressed that she wanted to fight. Chu Tian naturally wished for this to happen. As for whether he felt guilty. Stop joking. Did Chu Tian really naively think that the elves were a group of good people? It was true that the elves were kind by nature, but this kind of kindness was only for their own kind. The elves had been able to reproduce on the continent for so many years, survive the slaughter of countless races, and walk towards glory. Just this point alone showed that they were definitely not easy to deal with. Many races had been destroyed because of the elves' enmity. When the elves dealt with their enemies, they would not be any kinder than humans. Chapter 697. Meng Qinggu had imagined Chu Tian's injuries to be very serious. Actually these injuries were a bit more troublesome than before, but it was impossible for Chu Tian to deal with them. He had been resting in bed for the past few days, but he was actually taking this chance to relax. The Yun sect's research had made enough progress, so Chu Tian didn't need to personally take care of everything. It was fine to let his subordinates take care of it. As for Meng Qinggu and Miracle Commerce searching the world for Chu Tian didn't care. How could a small country like the southern summer country find an immortal herb? Immortal herbs weren't cabbages. Level 2 immortal herbs were even rarer than level 3 immortal herbs in a sense because immortal herbs were created by the heaven and earth, so they had a large amount of essence. Most immortal herbs far surpassed level 2 immortal herbs, so low-level immortal herbs were hard to find. Then again, even if they found a level 2 immortal herb, did Miracle Commerce have something of equal value to exchange for it? Miracle Commerce's current resources were mostly from the southern summer country, so they weren't high level, high quality, or rare. The money they used was the southern summer country's gold coins, which were worthless in other countries. Although they had a bit of source stones in reserve, it was far from enough to buy an immortal herb. This kind of purchase was a waste of effort no matter how he looked at it. Who would have thought that when Chu Tian had this kind of thought, a little elven princess would come out of nowhere with an immortal herb? She traveled tens of thousands of miles to Central State and didn't ask for anything in return, giving it to Chu Tian for free. What the heck, where did this prodigal come from? How precious was an immortal herb, it was equivalent to over 100 top-grade sacred herbs. Chu Tian had a look of disbelief on his face as he looked at the elf who had given him the medicine. This was a short elf that was only 1 centimeters tall. She was wearing clothes woven from branches and leaves and wore a crown of flowers on her head. She was barefooted, and although her body was not fully developed, her face was breathtakingly beautiful. This person's aura was very strong, perhaps she was a peak expert. But her face was filled with curiosity and innocence, looking like she didn't know much about the world. According to the elven tradition, young elves were not allowed to come into contact with the outside world. Perhaps she had secretly run out. Wah! When the little princess saw Chu Tian, her snow-white face turned red with excitement and her eyes were filled with stars. She was a little nervous and reserved. I never thought I would be able to see you. I am Vivian, although I am not a human, I have used the things you invented, so I admire you very much. So when I heard you were injured, I brought you a herb from my tribe. Quickly take a look and see if this herb is useful to you. So the reason and motive of the little princess giving medicine made everyone not know whether to laugh or cry. They never would have thought that miracle commerce's influence would seep into the elves, and they never would have thought that there would be a worshipper like the little princess amongst the elves. Longevity grass. Chu Tian opened the box to take a look and revealed a surprised expression. Longevity grass was a rare herb recorded in ancient books, and Chu Tian had never seen it in the future. This was a precious herb that could increase one's lifespan. Meng Yingying nervously asked, "Is it useful?" Longevity grass contains the essence of life. Even if a normal person uses it, their lifespan will increase according to their lifespan, so it is not a problem to repair damage to one's life. This herb was very special. Even if Chu Tian ate it raw, he would still be able to recover from his injuries. But Chu Tian would not waste it like this. Other than that, he found a problem with this herb, only, this herb has traces of an unremoved seal on it. If my guess isn't wrong, you secretly brought it out from your tribe. Chu Tian's guess was not without basis. Even if the elves were very closed off, they would not come all the way here to deliver medicine to an outsider they had never met. This medicine was most likely done by this little elf, and she didn't look that old, probably less than 70 years old. From the traces on this herb had been transplanted once, but it hadn't been moved in 80 years. So, Chu Tian did not even need to think about it to make a judgment. This was the property of the elven tribe, or it was the property of a high-level member of the elven tribe. Anyway, it was not the little elf's personal property, so it was most likely stolen. Everyone became worried. The elves were very strong. If the little princess stole an immortal herb and gave it to Chu Tian, wouldn't this anger the elves? The elves were xenophobic and did not like coming in contact with humans. Now that the little elf had not only broken the rules of the tribe, she had also stolen an important herb. If the elves came looking for trouble in a fit of rage, perhaps miracle commerce would not be able to bear the consequences. Powerful, truly powerful. Truly worthy of being Chu Tian, you can see the truth with a single glance. The little Princess Vivian did not hide anything at all as she said with a giggle, "Our tribe doesn't have many immortal herbs and I don't have any on hand, so I could only secretly dig one out. But don't worry, the elves won't find trouble with you for this small matter. At most they will lock me up for 10 years. The little princess did not think she had done anything wrong. This immortal herb did not have much use for the elven elders, it was at most one of Aubersen's treasures. Rather than being kept by Aubersen every day, it was better to take it out and use it for something more meaningful. With this chance, Chu Tian would owe the elves a favor. Perhaps it would be very useful in the future. Lock you up for 10 years? This punishment was too severe. Little Princess Vivian was willing to accept this kind of punishment to help miracle commerce. This made the Meng sisters feel a bit sorry. Don't look at me like that, 10 years is nothing to the elves. Not to mention the fact that being locked up has no effect on me. The little Princess Vivian immediately added, because our tribe does not have a way to lock me up. The herb has already been stolen and it won't be in time to send it back, so you don't need to worry. Meng Yingying was moved as she said, we really don't know how to thank you. Why are humans so troublesome? Whip them. Whip them in fear. Sizzling bones fade peacefully and recover with a clang. Cut them in disorder. Since the little princess had said this, if he refused, he would seem like an old woman. Chu Tian impolitely took the immortal herbs and wrote a list for Meng Qinggu. He told Meng Qinggu to collect these materials as soon as possible. These materials were all common sacred herbs. With Miracle Commerce's current ability and resources, it shouldn't be hard to find them. Meng Qinggu took the list and left. Chu Tian looked at Vivian and said, can you let me see your source spirit? Of course, there's no problem. Vivian's spirit energy was released. When her spirit energy was released, it didn't have any color and one could only see ripples in space. Following that, a white dagger appeared above Vivian's head. This dagger was very special, it seemed like it was connected to space. It contained a strong spatial energy and every time it moved, it would cut through space like tofu. Spatial dagger. Little Princess Vivian's source spirit. A rare spatial attributed source spirit. Chu Tian rubbed his chin and said, although you have a strong spatial source spirit, the strange thing is that you don't seem to cultivate a spatial attributed cultivation technique. Vivian said with a depressed expression, it is because spatial attributed cultivation techniques are rare and the elves can't find one suitable for them, so my main cultivation technique is not spatial attributed. Everyone felt it was a pity hearing this. The spatial attribute was definitely one of the strongest attributes. If she could find a suitable cultivation technique to complement her source spirit, little Princess Vivian's potential would be very shocking. However, because the spatial attributed was rare and powerful, there were very few people who could cultivate it, so it was hard to pass it down. It was normal that the little princess couldn't find a suitable cultivation technique for herself. This is truly great. Chu Tian gave a laugh which made everyone suspicious. Chu Tian explained, you didn't come all this way to give me the medicine, so Miracle Commerce can't repay you. I'll use a special cultivation technique to return the favor. Little Princess Vivian was shocked. It can't be. Could it be that Chu Tian had a spatial attributed cultivation technique? This cultivation technique is called void escaping, it is a movement technique based on space. Your source spirit, spatial dagger, matches the requirements of this cultivation technique. As long as you can cultivate this cultivation technique, there will be few people in the same realm that can threaten your life. Everyone's faces fell. These people were not only shocked that Chu Tian could take out a spatial attributed cultivation technique, they were also shocked at the strong effects of this cultivation technique. Once this void escaping was cultivated, no matter how much his battle strength increased, at least within a large realm, it would be hard for anyone to kill him. This was definitely an extremely strong cultivation technique. Vivian found this a little hard to believe. Could this person really take out a spatial attributed cultivation technique? Chu Tian did not say anything else as he took out a jade slip and spent the entire night recording the cultivation technique. He personally gave it to Vivian and seriously said, after you memorize this cultivation technique, destroy it. Don't leak it, otherwise it will bring trouble. Vivian had only wanted to give him the medicine. She never thought that she would have this kind of fortuitous encounter. Vivian had thought that in her entire life, it would be hard for her to cultivate a complete spatial attributed cultivation technique. When Vivian saw the main points of the void escaping cultivation technique, she felt her blood boil. This was not just a complete spatial attributed cultivation technique, it was also a very high-class cultivation technique. To Vivian and the elves, this cultivation technique was worth more than a single immortal herb. Even 10 or 100 couldn't compare. Meng Qinggu came back at this time. The materials that Chu Tian needed had all been found in the storage, so the conditions were met. Now he could directly refine the medicine. Good. The heavens really are helping me. This troublesome old injury can finally be cleaned up. Chu Tian said to Vivian, stay in Central State for 2 days. If there's anything you don't understand, write it down and I'll explain it to you when I come out. After saying this, Chu Tian went into closed-door cultivation. Chapter 698. It was reasonable for Vivian to hate the spirit beasts. The spirit beasts and the elves could be considered mortal enemies. The elves had been the rulers of the continent for a long time, but the elves had a slow population growth and they did not have a strong heart, so they were chased by the aggressive spirit beasts. The two races had a fierce battle. The elves had the absolute advantage in the beginning, suppressing the spirit beasts and almost exterminating the spirit beasts. Only, the spirit beasts were cheap, but they had a strong reproductive ability and a fast metabolism. Every time they were defeated, they would recover in just a few decades. The two races had fought for several thousand years and the elves' population kept decreasing. Instead, they were suppressed and the situation became worse and worse. Finally, in a decisive battle, the spirit beasts defeated the elves, causing the elves that once ruled the continent to fall from their altar. When the spirit beasts thought they could replace the elves, there was suddenly another race that entered the race competition. This race was the human race. The humans' reproductive ability was only inferior to the spirit beasts. They were more intelligent, civilized, cunning, and fickle. The spirit beasts and humans had been on the same level in the past few years, so there was no clear winner. The previous overlord, the elves, although they were a peak power, in the long run, the elves no longer had the power or ability to dominate the continent. How many elves had the spirit beasts killed? It was because of their race's history that the elves hated the spirit beasts. Vivian was familiar with this since she was young, and adding in the fact that the spirit beasts in the Forest of Chaos would often steal, in Vivian's eyes, the spirit beasts were the embodiment of evil. They were the pests of the continent, lowly and cruel creatures that should be exterminated. Although the elves did not have any good feelings towards the humans because there were always greedy human traffickers that came to kidnap elven girls, compared to the spirit beasts, the humans were considered good citizens. Central State's temporary king's residence. Miracle Commerce's people had all arrived. Princess Vivian was wearing a flower crown, clothes made of leaves, and her feet were bare. This strange foreign race attire was very eye-catching among the humans, so of course Dongfang Gan noticed it. His eyes slightly moved, but he did not ask anything. The war hounds have already set off, so our army must prepare a countermeasure. Southern Summer King, you can be assured. Meng Qinggu said in a confident voice, our army has over 100,000 source energy weapons, over 10,000 source energy bombs, and 4 source energy cannons. As long as we equip them with the Central State Fleet and intercept them on the water, it's hard to say who will win. The Cloud Dream Marquis words are wrong. The Warhounds have over 600,000 soldiers and have come out in full force, showing their intent to fight. Our Northern Army has 300,000 soldiers and they are all ground cavalry. If they are converted to navy, their battle strength will be greatly reduced. The Central State Army of 100,000 is not the main force of the Southern Summer Country, so their battle strength can be ignored. When the two armies meet, our side is clearly the weaker side, so there is no advantage in not fighting. These words weren't wrong. In terms of military strength, the Southern Summer Country was not a match. The Warhounds were not good at fighting on the water, but weren't the Southern Summer Country the same? A valiant cavalry had been turned into a navy, unable to display their martial strength. They were like wolves without claws. There was no need to mention the Central State Army. They were not the main force, so they couldn't even show themselves. When the two armies fought, they would collapse with a single touch, not being able to do much. It's impossible for another qualified commander-in-chief to not analyze the strengths and weaknesses of both sides. Dongfang Gan looked at the map of the 6 southern counties on the wall. If I was the Fang King, I would not fight on the water. I would use any method to land and destroy the Southern Summer Country's army through land battles. If my guesses aren't wrong, the Warhounds' fleet will split up midway and use different routes to approach the Central Summer Country. Their army will land and the land battle will decide the outcome. Everyone's expressions changed. If it was like this, it would be hard to handle. They did not know how the Warhound's fleet would change, and the Central State Army did not have the advantage in numbers, so it was impossible to surround them. A general stood up and said, "We'll quickly send troops and try to break them one by one. It won't be that easy. The Four States Lake is very large and the routes can change at any time. How can we block 600,000 scattered enemies?" Dongfang Gan said this Four States Lake's main army attacking Central State could be a cover. I've studied the Fang King's tactics. This person likes to make risky moves, so it's very likely he will lead his air force to cross the northern mountains. While we are fighting the Warhounds at the Four States Lake, he will launch a surprise attack on Central State City and stab us in the heart. Everyone looked at each other in blank dismay. These southern summer generals had followed Dongfang Gan for many years. Dongfang Gan's perception was very strong, he could accurately predict the enemy's actions every time. This was also the reason why he was undefeatable. Everyone thought about the previous two battles. The Fang King's arrangements were very likely, but if it was like this, how could the southern summer country resist? The southern summer country was too weak. Whether it was the air force or the ground force, they would find it hard to resist. Chu Tian began to laugh. Dongfang Gan was waiting for him to speak, and seeing him finally speak, he immediately asked, "Why is the country guarding ruler laughing? Did the Southern Summer King really forget, or did he not mention it? Our air force and land force cannot compare to the other side, but we have an underwater force which the Warhounds definitely do not have. The Four States Lake battlefield is the Southern Summer Country's territory. Give me 100,000 troops and equip them with Miracle Commerce's weapons, I guarantee the 600,000 Warhounds will not be able to reach the shore. The other 300,000 will be left to defend Central State City. I don't believe the Warhounds can break through Central State." 100,000 people. Everyone looked at each other in blank dismay. This boasting was a bit too big. Chu Tian was filled with confidence. "I never boast, I can do what I say. 100,000 people is enough, do you not believe me?" Dongfang Gan thought about it for 2 seconds. "I'll give you 200,000 people, but don't be greedy. Don't try to delay the enemy and disrupt their formation. Central State City has 200,000 people, it's enough to guarantee their safety." Dongfang Gan said, "I'll give the Griffin Knights to you to protect the Central State Fleet. There's no need to worry about Central State City." Damn, this fellow really did not believe me. "You don't believe me, but I don't believe you." Chu Tian said, "To ensure the safety of Central State, I will leave some Miracle Commerce people to defend. Nangong, Yingying, Vivian, you will stay in Central State to help the Southern Summer King. Nangong Yun, Meng Yingying. What use could these two girls have?" Dongfang Gan's eyes fell onto Vivian and he noticed Chu Tian's words. Miracle Commerce's people. When Chu Tian said this, not only did this elf not show any displeasure, she even had a calm expression. What happened? Could it be that Chu Tian managed to rope in this elf this quickly? What kind of background did this elf have? There shouldn't be any problems roping her in like this, right? No matter what, this was a special time. This elf was very strong and would have quite a bit of use. Dongfang Gan directly sent out the royal proclamation, Central State's Divine Wind Marquis, Chu Tian, and Meng Qinggu will lead the Central State Fleet to the Four States Lake and welcome the mighty Warhounds army. 300 large warships were already on standby. 200,000 Southern Summer soldiers were gathered at the port. The Southern Summer King Dongfang Gan personally sent the army off. Dongfang Gan's style was different from Dongfang Hao's. Dongfang Gan did not like to play tricks. After simply motivating the soldiers, he immediately began to coordinate the transportation of supplies. 100,000 storm cavalrymen left their warhorses and transformed into the navy. The Southern Summer King understood the army very well. Most of the 100,000 soldiers were good at archery, and archers were very important in naval warfare. Of the 200,000 soldiers, a third of them were equipped with source energy firearms. Even if they weren't equipped with source energy firearms, most of them were equipped with heavy crossbows. Hung, dong, dong. There was a series of dull sounds of wheels turning. The source energy crossbow cannons that Miracle Commerce had just produced were being installed on the warships one by one. These source energy crossbow cannons were modified from traditional crossbows, and the crossbow bolts they shot were high explosive bolts. There was a total of over 100 of them. They had a range of several thousand meters. There were over 3,000 heavy explosive crossbow bolts. This kind of weapon would become one of the most destructive weapons in a warship battle. Not only could it cause large amounts of damage to the enemy, it could also destroy the Warhound's ships. Other than the source energy crossbow cannons, Miracle Commerce had also made several strange launchers. These launchers were used to launch bombs, and compared to the simple projectile weapons, these special launchers were more accurate. The shells they used were also specially made, so they had a terrifying destructive might. Finally, there were 2 shining source energy cannons that were fixed to the flagship Chu Tian was on. These 2 source energy cannons were the strongest weapons Miracle Commerce had ever produced. Even with many factories operating at the same time, they had only made 4 cannons. 2 were left in central state and 2 were brought out. These were truly powerful killing weapons. Everything is ready. Set sail. When the horn sounded, the Central State Fleet carrying the hopes of countless southern summer citizens slowly sailed out of the Central State Port towards the Four States Lake. Chu Tian crossed his legs as he sat on the deck enjoying the wind. I never thought that there would be a time where father would lead an army. Young miss, are you nervous? Meng Qinggu looked at him. What are you nervous about? It was so dangerous last time, but didn't we still survive? We're fully prepared this time. I don't believe they can play any tricks. Hey, it's best if you're not nervous. Chu Tian stood up and his eyes sparkled. Damn, it's time for us to take revenge. Have you notified Boss Yu's side? Relax, I've already contacted the giant shark gang's headquarters. Boss Yu has already organized a vanguard and is heading to the Warhound's kingdom ahead of us. Chu Tian nodded in satisfaction. He hoped that they would do a better job, saving Chu Tian quite a bit of effort. No matter how cautious the Fang King was, he could not understand Central State's strength in such a short period of time. The giant shark gang was a large problem that they didn't expect. Chapter 699. The true value of the longevity grass was not the immortal herb itself, but rather its special property of increasing one's lifespan. The herbs and pills on the continent were strictly limited. For example, a level 1 herb was only effective for body refinement cultivators. If it was used on an awakened soul cultivator, the effect would be limited no matter how high it was. If it was used on a true spirit cultivator, it would have no effect at all. Therefore, a normal level 2 immortal herb could become a precious collection, but it didn't have much use for the elven elders. The special thing about the longevity grass was that not only did it have the medicinal properties of a level 2 immortal herb, it could also increase one's innate vitality. It wasn't like it didn't have any use for the elven elders. After all, it was equal to several decades of lifespan. Vivian recklessly stealing the longevity grass would cause quite a bit of a stir, but Chu Tian didn't have any thoughts of returning it. With Chu Tian's current strength, it was easier said than done to get an immortal herb. Since it was delivered to him, how could he let it go? He would swallow the fat meat that was delivered to his mouth first. He wouldn't consider anything else in the future. But an entire immortal herb was too much. Chu Tian took a third of it to refine a pill. In terms of quality, it was only a half-immortal grade pill. Whether it was the longevity grass itself or the supplementary herbs, they were all sacred healing medicines that contained a large amount of life essence. So this pill was mainly used for healing, which was more than enough for Chu Tian's injuries. I can finally get rid of this sickly state. When Chu Tian swallowed the immortal pill, it was activated by his spirit energy and turned into a large amount of essence. It quickly seeped out of his organs, into his muscles, and into his bone marrow. A vigorous life energy covered his body, healing his broken meridians without any suspense. Not only did Chu Tian's injuries instantly turn for the better, his cultivation base also quickly jumped from the 6th awakened soul layer to the peak 6th awakened soul layer. Although this pill was made with a healing formula, it was still made with immortal herbs and many other sacred herbs. The spiritual energy condensed inside was something that a trivial intermediate awakened soul realm illustrious soul realm cultivator could not imagine. Not only did Chu Tian reach the peak 6th awakened soul layer, he could feel that he had only absorbed a fifth of the pill's essence. Even if he used the rest of the energy, it would be enough for him to break through the peak 6th awakened soul layer and jump into the 7th awakened soul layer, the true soul realm. Good, very good. He never thought that a third of the immortal herb would have this kind of effect. Not only had Chu Tian's injuries healed, he had also obtained a large increase in strength. The rest of the immortal herbs that could increase one's cultivation base could be refined into pills, allowing others to obtain a large increase in strength. Little Princess Vivian's medicine had increased Miracle Commerce's strength by another level. While Chu Tian was in closed-door cultivation, Little Princess Vivian was brought around Miracle Commerce by Meng Yingying. After touring the Yun sect's research facility, Vivian was deeply shocked by Miracle Commerce's creativity. She felt that she had done an incredible thing. Chu Tian had the ability to change the entire world and she, Vivian, had saved such a powerful person's life. Wasn't this a large merit? Not to mention that Vivian had obtained a large lucky chance. The spatial cultivation technique she obtained from Chu Tian was enough to benefit all living beings. This was something that no immortal herb could compare to. Other than that, Vivian had another large harvest. Because Meng Qingguo had given the task of taking care of little Princess Vivian to her little sister, Meng Yingying had been inseparable with Vivian for the past few days. The two of them ate and slept together, talking about everything. In the end, little Princess Vivian was surprised to find that she had something in common with Meng Yingying, this fake princess. Although the two of them had a large age difference and were of different races, there was no barrier between them at all. The two of them regretted not meeting earlier and immediately became good friends that talked about everything. Meng Yingying's heart was pure, beautiful, and kind, almost no different from elves. Meng Yingying was not as rigid as the other elves, so she was especially to little Princess Vivian's liking. The two of them had only known each other for a few days, but they had already agreed to make a movie together and were about to become sworn sisters. Meng Qingguo had always been paying attention to the two of them. When she saw that her younger sister and the little princess were getting along well, her heart was very happy. The elves were naturally pure and kind, but they were also very sensitive and sharp. They would always be wary of the complicated and fickle humans. Only a pure person like Yingying could get along well with the elves. This was something that even Meng Qingguo could not do. Meng Qingguo didn't know what realm the little princess had reached, but Dongfang Gan, who was in the second true spirit layer, couldn't compare to her, so the little princess was at least in the third true spirit layer. Even in a warring kingdom, she would be a peak expert. Not to mention the little princess was the Elven King's daughter, she had a revered and noble status. If they could use her to form a good relationship with the elves, Miracle Commerce would not need to fear the Eagle Burial warring kingdom behind the Warhound's kingdom. On this day, Meng Yingying invited the little princess to the Miracle Hotel to eat and drink. Meng Qingguo felt that after several days of contact, the little Princess Vivian should have let down her guard, so she personally came to the hotel to find the two of them. She saw these two fellows making an entire table of food and wine, drinking and chatting. The little princess was dancing on the large dining table with her bare white feet. Meng Yingying saw her elder sister appear and was very surprised. "Elder sister, why are you suddenly free? Come and sit. I just happened to pass by and heard you were here, so I came to take a look." Meng Qingguo came to test the little princess, so she couldn't make her intentions too obvious. "Honorable Princess Vivian, are you satisfied with Central State?" Vivian's face turned red. "I like it here." Meng Qingguo said with a smile, "Since you like it here, why don't you stay in Central State?" The little Princess Vivian immediately looked like a deflated balloon, her face full of depression, and said, "That won't do, the elves are not allowed to privately interact with humans. I have already left home for more than 2 days, most of the elders have already found out and are looking for me all over the forest. If they can't find me in the forest, they will probably come here. I can't implicate you." Meng Yingying was very angry. How can the elves be a group of old fogies? It's not like every human is a bad person. Princess Vivian has been in Central State for a few days, but we still don't know where you came from. Can you introduce your hometown to us? This was the question Meng Qinggu wanted to answer the most. She already had a general understanding that Vivian came from the south, but the kingdom did not have enough information on the southern region of the southern summer country. They only knew that there were barbarians, dwarves, and other rare races living in the endless forest. That's right. Meng Yingying slapped the table. After you tell us, I'll ask Chu Tian to build a communication station there. Even if you're in the tribe, you can still receive information from Central State and even contact us. Vivian was clearly tempted. If Miracle Commerce could build a communication station in the Emerald Forest, wouldn't that bring a rich life to the elves? It would make the tribe that had been closed off for thousands of years suddenly filled with vitality. When she, Vivian, missed Yingying and Chu Tian, she could use the communication device to contact them. Is this really possible? For Miracle Commerce, this is just a small matter. Vivian didn't have any wariness towards the Meng sisters at all. When she heard the Meng sisters say this, her heart was filled with nothing but gratitude. She immediately told them about the tribe's area, the surrounding terrain, the specific location, and even the population's strength. She told them everything. The area Vivian lived in was to the south of the southern summer country. It was a land of chaos that spanned tens of thousands of miles. Because the forest occupied 70 to 80% of the area, this place was called the Forest of Chaos. The terrain was chaotic, the species were chaotic, the races were chaotic, the influences were chaotic, and the order was chaotic. In short, it was a land of chaos. There were countless spiritual veins intersecting in this area, and the land was very fertile. There were countless heaven and earth treasures as well as countless heavenly paradises. In short, it had all the conditions to become a large empire. However, there were hundreds of races in this area. There were large races like the spirit beasts and elves, strong races like the dragons and the giants' tears, as well as rare races like the dwarves, the flower fairies, and the tree spirits. These races all had their own rules and kept each other in check, with no one being able to stand out. The west side of the Forest of Chaos was close to the sea, which was the border of the Sea Race Empire. The southeast side was occupied by the Empire, where many superpowers intersected, so this made the situation even more complicated. The current Forest of Chaos main system was a city-state system. Large amounts of underground cities and forest cities were scattered all over the place like a chessboard. Each city occupied thousands of miles of rich resources, representing an overlord. They were fought over by the various forest races, and there were some large cities that even had several vassal cities, becoming a giant that was not weaker than a warring kingdom. A place without a country. Meng Yingying felt this was very strange. There are clearly over 10 billion people, but there aren't any countries. It is rare to see races all gathered in the same area on the continent. Different races have different habits and beliefs, so naturally it is hard to unify them. Meng Qinggu never thought that there would be this kind of area to the south of the southern summer country. Then what are the strongest powers in the Forest of Chaos? Vivian said, other than us elves, the Forest of Chaos also has several strong powers. For example, Dragon City controlled by the Dragon Lord, Titan City controlled by the Giants, Wild Beast City controlled by the Spirit Beasts, West Sea City controlled by the Western Sea Race, and etc. They are all powers that cannot be underestimated and can be considered the overlords of the Forest of Chaos. Vivian drew a simple map of the area. Meng Qinggu had been very troubled recently. Miracle Commerce's development to the north had been blocked, so how should they expand? Now, a new world had appeared in front of her. This complicated and rich place, this primitive and barbaric place, perhaps it would become miracle commerce's new direction. As a merchant, Meng Qinggu was very clear that the places with business opportunities were not places with order. The more chaotic a place was, the more opportunities there were to rise. Chapter 700. 3,000 giant shark gang elites were currently standing on the small island with their arms bare. Each gang member was carrying a large backpack with a round object the size of a washbasin inside. This was the water bomb that Miracle Commerce had carefully developed. The 5 leaders stood in front with serious expressions and their hands behind their backs. Boss Yu stood in the center with a fish-bone cane, looking over everyone with a deep and sharp gaze. Ever since my giant shark gang has joined hands with Miracle Commerce, we have grown by leaps and bounds in just 2 short months. We have obtained large amounts of resources and our strength has increased, becoming the #1 gang in the Southern Summer Country. Now that the Southern Summer Country is in danger and Miracle Commerce has been implicated, it is time for us to play our role. Everyone loudly shouted, "Prepare to serve at any time." Working with Miracle Commerce in this period of time, everyone had benefited greatly. Everyone could feel Miracle Commerce's shocking potential, and as long as they followed Miracle Commerce, everyone would have an unimaginable future. One's losses were losses, one's glory was glory. The Southern Summer Country was in a situation of life and death. Once the Southern Summer Country fell, how would Miracle Commerce survive? Once Miracle Commerce fell, how would the giant shark gang survive? The Warhound's kingdom was their common enemy. Everyone had the same thoughts and the same logic. This battle was unavoidable and they could only give it their all. Gang leader, the Warhound's army is within 200 miles. Alright, let's go. The 5 leaders personally led the 3,000 elites into the water. The 3,000 people were like incomparably agile fish, diving several hundred meters into the water. The giant shark gang had already familiarized themselves with the 4 states lake, and the surrounding water was specially chosen by the giant shark gang for the Warhound's kingdom. This was the deep water area, being several hundred meters deep. Secondly, the underwater terrain was complex with dense reefs, which was suitable for cover. Even if the Warhound's experts opened their mind's eye, they would not be able to find the giant shark gang in the water. The giant shark gang were all cultivators with special bloodlines, otherwise even a true spirit cultivator would not be able to hide underwater for several hours. All of their actions were carried out in the deep water, ensuring that nothing would go wrong. Night slowly fell. The 4 states lake was calm. The 3,000 giant shark gang elites passed through the depths of the lake and finally arrived at the Warhound's fleet. At this time, the Warhounds were only halfway through their journey, but the fleet had not split up and was still in a concentrated state. The Southern Summer Country knew the Warhound situation and the Warhounds knew the Southern Summer Country's situation. Now that the Southern Summer Country's fleet had just set off, they could not come into contact for now. If they split up too early, they would expose their plans and route. When Boss Yu looked up from the bottom of the lake, he saw that in the dark lake, there were hundreds and thousands of figures moving. There was an incomparably large number that was simply shocking. Move! Boss Yu gave a signal. The giant shark gang members all floated up and began to move. They slowly moved under the bed and from their bags, they took out a large round-shaped bomb. There was a nail at the top of the bomb, which could easily cut through the bottom of the ship. Moreover, it was secured with a hook. Large ships that were more than 100 meters in length were equipped with at least 4 bombs, while the smaller ones were equipped with 2 bombs. The medium-sized ships were equipped with 1 bomb in the center. As for the smaller ships, if there were any left over, they were equipped with as many bombs as possible. In less than an hour, the giant shark gang had already completed their mission. They activated the bomb's explosion function and quickly left the area, without anyone knowing. The Warhound's army was still valiantly moving forward, not knowing that a seed of destruction had already been planted under their feet. Before dawn, the Warhound's mighty fleet passed through the mist covering the lake, advancing in the direction of Central State. The Fong King's fierce flag fluttered above the sails. There were hundreds and thousands of ships, which were like a large group of terrifying beasts. The war hounds had 3 times as many warships as Chu Tian. There were less than a quarter of the warships, and most of them came from Furnace State because over half of the ships from Tsang State and the Imperial region had been burned by the calm martial ruler. What if there weren't enough ships? Of course they had to steal them. Because of this, the war hounds' fleet was very messy. There were many merchant ships, mercenary ships, and even large fishing boats. Although there were many ships, it was hard to carry an army of this size. Because of this, most of the ships were filled with people. This could be seen from the waterline. Wang Tianlong and Nan Gongling were fully armed as they stood on the deck. A war hound's chief with 2 blades on his back and his body covered in black bandages was coldly standing beside the 2 of them. He said in a low and deep voice, "Our army is already halfway and the Southern Summer Army has already set sail. It is time to carry out the Fang King's strategy of dividing the army." This warhound's chief was a true spirit expert. He was the only true spirit expert in the fleet. Wang Tianlong and Nan Gongling were just puppets. Although they were in charge of giving orders, they were all under the Fang King's orders. This true spirit realm warhound's chief was in charge of monitoring the 2 of them. If the 2 of them made any small movements, the warhound's chief could directly kill them. The 2 of them were very unhappy in their hearts, but what could they do? The Southern Summer Country had to lower its head to the warhounds. "Immediately pass down my order." Wang Tianlong ordered the fleet. "The 5 fleets will separate and advance at full speed, landing on the beach." Wang Tianlong's order was just given. Hong! The leftmost warship of the war hounds exploded with a shocking flame. Several explosions occurred in an instant and a fierce energy erupted like a volcano. A fierce pillar of flame shot out from the bottom of the warship, creating a large hole in the warship and tearing the entire warship in half. That fiery light shot up over 20 meters high and countless beast spirits were thrown out like raindrops. Large amounts of debris were scattered all around, stirring up huge waves that flipped several of the small merchant ships on the side upside down. Wang Tianlong and the others were shocked. Enemy attack, enemy attack. No one could have imagined that they would encounter an enemy attack this quickly, but they couldn't find a single shadow. Where was the enemy? This explosion was just the beginning. Hung, 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 hung. The surface of the 4 states lake released an unbelievable explosion as countless flames soared into the sky. The entire warhound's fleet was blown to pieces and most of the warships were destroyed by the explosion. Several 100,000 warhound soldiers fell into the water and the terrifying high temperature evaporated the seawater, turning it into a large amount of fog that rose into the sky, completely covering the area. The entire lake was filled with waves and the lake water was boiling hot. The surface of the lake, which had been calm just a moment ago, abruptly exploded into a shocking tsunami. There was an entire 1 to 2,000 explosions and each bomb was carefully developed by Miracle Commerce. There was a large amount of highly refined crystal oil that could create an extremely high temperature and shockwave. The warhound's spirit beasts were not prepared at all, and with this kind of fierce bombardment, it was hard to imagine the number of casualties. There were at least 100,000 warhound's spirit beasts that were killed in the explosions. The entire warhound's fleet was instantly destroyed. When Wang Tianlong fell into the water, he felt the surrounding lake water boil. With such a high level of energy released in such a short period of time, the entire lake was boiling. Large amounts of steam soared into the sky, covering an area of several dozen kilometers. Countless spirit beasts gave pitiful cries as they struggled in the boiling water. Large amounts of corpses were cooked, releasing a disgusting smell of meat. They couldn't see anything. The fleet had completely collapsed and all orders were useless. What is going on here? Why did the warships all explode? Wang Tianlong could not believe what was happening in front of him no matter what. The majestic army that swept through the world had turned into drowned chickens in an instant. The warships were all destroyed and the Southern Summer Army was nowhere to be seen. How could Wang Tianlong not go crazy with rage? The warhounds never thought that they would be attacked by Miracle Commerce ahead of time because they had been observing the situation in the central state port and Chu Tian had sent the giant shark gang's elites. The giant shark gang's headquarters was in the center of the Four States Lake, so the giant shark gang directly attacked from their headquarters. This naturally had an unexpected effect. When the warhounds' fleet suffered a serious setback, Chu Tian saw the flames in the distance and revealed a satisfied smile. Have the fleet open the iron lock formation. The 200 ships were divided into 2 rows. The first row was placed horizontally with a wide deck that was filled with archers holding bows and guns, all aiming forward. There were some ships that had crossbow cannons and launchers on them. The second row of ships was in a charge formation, standing vertically between the ships in front. It was like as long as an order was given, these ships would immediately charge forward. Quang, dang, dang. At this moment, incomparably thick iron chains linked the ships together, causing all the ships to be as stable as Mount Tai and as firm as a boulder. Chu Tian was sitting on the flagship, leisurely waiting for something. The Divine Wind Marquis landed in front of him and asked with a puzzled expression, "Why did you give the order to stop moving forward?" Other than that, although this iron lock formation can stabilize the fleet, it limits their flexibility. Once the enemy launches a sneak attack, we won't be able to react in time. What are you anxious for? This. Chu Tian pointed at the misty lake and said, "Look." When the Divine Wind Marquis looked in the distance, his eyes suddenly froze. What is this? On the calm Four States Lake, there was a blue line that suddenly appeared. It looked like a mountain range. The strange thing was, why was there a mountain on the Four States Lake? When the Divine Wind Marquis was confused. Suddenly, a warm and humid wind blew, accompanied by a light drizzle. Even the rainwater was warm. The blue outline was getting closer and closer. The Divine Wind Marquis pupils suddenly shrank. What kind of mountain was this? This was clearly a tsunami that was over 100 meters tall. Be careful. The water covered the sky as it swept over. It was a good thing that Chu Tian had anchored the ships ahead of time. Although this giant tsunami was very fierce, it did not cause too much damage to the southern summer country's ships. Meng Qingguo and Chen Bingyu were completely soaked. These two beauties with the best figures in Miracle Commerce were soaked in front of Chu Tian. Their voluptuous figures were completely revealed, giving Chu Tian a feast for his eyes. Meng Qingguo was stunned as she looked at everything happening in front of her. She muttered to herself, "This is too exaggerated." Chapter 701. After a strong wave of spirit energy, Chu Tian had smoothly come out. In this short closed-door cultivation, not only had he recovered from his injuries, he had also reached the 7th awakened soul layer. This filled Miracle Commerce with energy and swept away everyone's worries. It was all thanks to the immortal medicine little Princess Vivian sent. Since Chu Tian was fine, the little princess was prepared to go back. After all, she had left home for several days and the elven elders were searching for her, so they must be going crazy with worry. If they chased her here, Chu Tian and the small southern summer country's troubles would be unavoidable. Vivian decided to go back and admit her wrongs. At worst she would be locked up for a while, but as long as the storm passed, she could still come to the southern summer country to play with Chu Tian and Yingying. Vivian's immortal medicine and Chu Tian's spatial cultivation technique were basically even, so Chu Tian did not ask her to stay. This made little Princess Vivian a bit disappointed. She said her goodbyes with a depressed expression, "Remember to visit me in the Forest of Chaos when you have time, I'll be very bored in the tribe." "Princess, you don't need to be in a rush to leave. I've carefully prepared some gifts for you, so can you wait a bit?" "Is that so?" "Many thanks big sister Meng Qingguo." Little Princess Vivian really liked Miracle Commerce's things, especially the cameras, the magnetic sound machine, and the video player. If she could bring a bunch of them back, she wouldn't be bored even if she was locked up. Meng Qingguo gave a soft cough before leaving. Chu Tian came back to his senses. The young miss had something to say. He immediately followed Meng Qinggu to the back hall. What is this? Take a look at this first. Meng Qinggu took out the map from Princess Vivian's description. She first introduced the situation of the Forest of Chaos and then explained her thoughts. The true threat we are facing right now is not the Warhound's kingdom, but rather the Eagle Burial Kingdom behind them. It is not hard to defeat the Warhound's kingdom, but the Eagle Burial Kingdom is not easy to deal with. Miracle Commerce is barren and cannot expand, and the north is covered by the Eagle Burial Kingdom, so the only place we can break through is the south. The overall strength of the Forest of Chaos is not inferior to an empire. Those peak forest cities, mountain cities, and underground cities are not weaker than the Eagle Burial Kingdom. Only there are hundreds of races and the situation is chaotic, so the power distribution is uneven. Although the terrain is primitive, the fierce beasts, and the various powers are chaotic, it is also because of this that it is a good place to fish in troubled waters. I understand the young miss meaning. The Forest of Chaos is a fertile land and Miracle Commerce has great potential in this area, but we haven't thought of a way to enter it yet. I think we should go through Vivian and find a way to connect with the elves. The south could become a fertile land for Miracle Commerce and Chu Tian's group to expand, but everything was difficult at the beginning. The powers in the Forest of Chaos were too strong. Not to mention the Dragon Lord, the Elven King, or the Titans. Any small or medium-sized power could destroy them. How to enter safely was the most important thing. The best way was to form an alliance with a local tribe. This way they could protect them in the beginning and also help Miracle Commerce develop. The little elf sitting outside, wasn't she just a local? Meng Qinggu had not thought of a way to form an alliance yet. After all, the elves were very reclusive and had an overwhelming strength. If they made contact with them, not only would they not achieve their goal, they might even bring disaster upon themselves. Understood, leave it to me. When Chu Tian returned to the living room, Meng Yingying was sending off little Princess Vivian. The two of them had a look of reluctance because after today, who knew when they would meet again. Chu Tian directly walked in front of Vivian and said, I have a suggestion. How about you don't go back and just join Miracle Commerce? Meng Qinggu almost spat out blood. What kind of idea was this? Did he not know the consequences of doing this? If they left Vivian in Central State and let her join Miracle Commerce, the elves would definitely be enraged. They would insist that Chu Tian was the one who kidnapped the princess. It would be strange if they didn't destroy Miracle Commerce at that time. I agree. I also think so. Vivian did not even have time to speak before Meng Yingying expressed her strong support. Since you will be punished when you go back, why don't you stay with us? But Vivian was very excited. She hadn't played enough these past few days and would be locked up for a long time when she returned to the tribe. If she could choose, of course she would want to stay. But Vivian was not stupid. If she went back on her own accord, she would be punished for violating the tribe's rules. But if she was left behind by humans, the situation would be completely different. Wouldn't it implicate Chu Tian and the others? Chu Tian said to Vivian, do you like Miracle Commerce? Do you want the elves to benefit and participate in Miracle Commerce? Of course I like it, this is a great cause. Vivian's words were not false at all. After traveling around Central State these past few days, she had a deep understanding of Miracle Commerce's potential. I feel that Miracle Commerce's future will not be normal. You're right. Even in a small and poor country, Miracle Commerce only took half a year to develop to this point. But our dream is not to just stay in one place. Then what is it? We want to change this world and even change this era. We want the continent to become more wonderful because of us and let everyone's lifestyle change. We want to personally create a miraculous dynasty. Vivian revealed a look of worship. This was great, this was the Chu Tian she admired. The southern summer country is too poor. If we can enter a place like the Forest of Chaos one day, I think Miracle Commerce will have great achievements. Chu Tian said this and suddenly revealed a compassionate look. I've heard that there are over 100 races living in the forest of chaos, fighting and killing each other. There is no law and order, with bandits, murderers, and human traffickers everywhere. There should be a power that can end this chaotic situation and pacify this chaotic forest. Miracle Commerce is willing to help and use the forest of chaos as the first step to our dream. I wonder if the elves are willing to help. Vivian's body trembled. What? Miracle Commerce wanted to go to the forest of chaos. The forest of chaos was Vivian's hometown, how could she not be willing? Vivian anxiously jumped up. Each elf hopes to change the situation of the forest, but we can't do it with just our strength. Then don't hesitate, let's work together now. With Miracle Commerce's wisdom and the elf strength, sweeping the entire forest of chaos will not be a problem. Chu Tian patted Vivian's shoulder. As for the elves, you don't need to worry. I believe that in the near future, the forest of chaos will become peaceful and orderly and the elves will become an important force. The elven elders are very rigid, I'm afraid you will. Rigid? I, Chu Tian, specialize in dealing with rigid people, there is nothing I can't deal with. Relax and stay here for a few more days. After the southern summer country's matter is over, I'll go with you to the forest of chaos to convince them and let the elves become Miracle Commerce's allies. Really? Please look into my sincere eyes. Do I look like a swindler? Meng Yingying seized this chance to say from the side, you might not understand this fellow, but as long as he dares to say something, there is nothing he can't do. No matter how difficult it is, you can be assured. Vivian was more and more moved. She was very clear about Chu Tian's deeds, so she knew that this person was good at creating miracles. Perhaps he could really convince them. Alright, then I'll stay here for a few more days. Meng Yingying shouted out in pleasant surprise, great. Vivian's face was also filled with a smile. She liked this creative place from the bottom of her heart. The elven forest was filled with gardening, painting, and carving. That kind of life was too boring, she was bored for a day, not to mention a lifetime. People lived in this world, so they needed to do something. Meng Qinggu did not know what Chu Tian was thinking, but with their tacit understanding, Meng Qinggu would not question Chu Tian's decisions. Not to mention that Vivian was very strong. If she could stay in Central State City would at least have a strong defense. Princess Vivian has become a member of the company, so we should give her a position. With Vivian's status, we can't just casually ignore her. What position does the young miss think we should give her? The departments did not lack people in charge, so what position could they give Vivian? Meng Qinggu's heart skipped a beat. Since Miracle Commerce is prepared to expand into the forest of chaos, we should create an external development manager. The position will be the same as the branch chairman, what do you think? Chu Tian nodded, alright, that's it. Good. 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 Meng Yingying revealed a smile, we welcome the princess to Miracle Commerce. Vivian giggled a few times. She had heard Meng Yingying talk about Chu Tian recently, so she was very envious of Meng Yingying who could work beside Chu Tian. It would be great if she could work together with Chu Tian, but she never thought that her wish would come true this quickly. What attracted Vivian the most was that Miracle Commerce was going to the forest of chaos. Vivian thought of going with Miracle Commerce and showing off her skills in the forest of chaos, her blood began to boil. What should I do now? No rush, no rush. You don't need to do anything right now, I'll teach you a few things. If Chu Tian wanted to convince the old fellows of the elven tribe, he needed to take out something that would make them speechless. During this period of time, you just need to practice the void escaping, well. Yes, Chairman. The little princess had finally settled down. Chu Tian used the remaining 2/3 of the immortal herbs and with a bunch of cultivation increasing sacred herbs, he refined another 10 pills. Although they were refined from incomplete immortal herbs and dregs, they were not inferior to top-grade sacred pills and their effects were even better. Chu Tian gave them to the people around him. In the end, the young Miss, Yingying, Feng Kaidai, Yun Yao, and the others all easily reached the 6th awakened soul layer. Nangong Yun reached the peak 6th awakened soul layer, and breaking through to the 7th awakened soul layer was just around the corner. Although Chen Bingyu did not break through, her cultivation had increased a bit. What surprised Chu Tian the most was that after Dongfang Haoren took the pill, his cultivation had smoothly reached the peak 9th awakened soul layer. His strength had almost reached the level of the Southern Summer Marquis, and it seemed like he was a person with potential. The entire Miracle Commerce's strength had increased by a level. Chapter 702. The Four States Lake was filled with waves, just like the scene of a storm. If the Southern Summer Country did not prepare ahead of time, facing this kind of attack, it would be hard to guarantee they wouldn't suffer losses. They could feel this wave from this far away. Then what kind of scene did the War Hound's army in the center of the explosion feel? Chu Tian gave a few loud laughs. All right, immediately pull the anchor. Don't change the formation, just line up and move forward at full speed. There is a pot of drowned chickens waiting for us to clean them up. Everyone charge forward and surround them. When Chu Tian's orders were sent out, the Southern Summer Fleet immediately moved. Several hundred warships lined up and surrounded the war hounds. After around half a day, there was a large amount of debris on the surface of the lake. Broken masts. Broken decks. Broken flags. Large amounts of war hounds' corpses filled the water. There were still many war hound soldiers that were still alive that were gathering together, trying to find a way to escape by floating objects. Hey, can you hear me? Chu Tian took a large loudspeaker from Meng Qingwu's hands and his voice spread across the lake, naturally reaching the other side's ears. I am the Central State Rescue Team's Captain Chu Tian. I heard that there was a large disaster here, so I came all the way here. I never thought that this disaster would be this serious, but you don't need to worry, I will help you end your pain. Prepare the ballistae and bows. The Warhound soldiers were so angry that their noses almost went crooked. This damn fellow, he actually used such a despicable method. Damn it, I knew it was you. Wang Tianlong was in a very sorry state as he stood on the half-turned warship with several hundred Warhound soldiers gathered around him. This will completely anger the Fang King and the Eagle Burial Empire. No one will save you, so just wait for our revenge. Chu Tian observed them. Wang Tianlong and Nangong Ling, these two traitors were injured, but they were still alive. Their luck really isn't bad. The two of them had a good understanding of the Southern Summer Country, so the Fang King was more suitable for them to lead. Other than that, Chu Tian also found a true Spirit Realm Warhounds expert, but it was only one, so it wasn't a problem. After all, the Warhounds army was already like this, how could they still have the strength to resist? The Fang King was not here. Dongfang Gan's guess was not wrong at all. The Fang King launched two attacks at the same time. The Warhounds used water to transport their troops and they used spatial techniques to sneak attack the main city. This plan was a good one. The Southern Summer Country's army was very weak. Even if they could stop the Warhounds' fleet, they wouldn't have the strength to defend the main city. If they could defend the main city, they wouldn't be able to stop this army of 600,000 people. Central State City's fall was a sure thing, it was only a matter of time. Only, was it really that easy? Chu Tian had just casually tripped the Warhounds and the 600,000 Warhounds army was stunned. What could they do now? Chu Tian had just started. Chu Tian held the large loudspeaker and shouted, "All refugees, prepare yourselves. There will be a bit of a bumpy ride later." The Warhound soldiers all stared at him in shock. What else did this fellow want to do? Chu Tian snapped his fingers with his right hand. Several silhouettes appeared in the clouds which turned out to be several giant airships. Each airship was escorted by a small group of Griffin Knights. When the airships appeared, large amounts of heavy bombs fell like rain, constantly falling onto the Warhound's fleet. Wave after wave of explosions filled the Four States Lake. After the powerful bombs exploded in the water, the terrifying pressure created was enough to shatter a person's internal organs. With this kind of wild bombardment, the casualties the warhounds suffered was unimaginable. Damn! Shoot them down for me. A group of vulture cavalry moved out. The Fang King was worried that the fleet would suffer a loss on the water, so he left a group of vultures to protect the warships. Who would have thought that before this group of vultures could even approach the airships, the Griffin Knights would charge forward with their source energy submachine guns. In that instant, large amounts of light bullets were fired at the Vulture Knights. The fierce firepower restrained the Vulture Knights without any suspense. Wang Tianlong was filled with rage and the Warhound's chief was also filled with rage. They immediately gave the order, charge forward at all costs and take their warships. The Warhounds were worthy of being an incomparably fierce spirit beast race. Even in this kind of situation, they still resisted. They swam through the water and attempted to steal the southern summer country's warship. This is just the appetizer. Chu Tian raised the sound of the horn to the max and loudly shouted, "Next, it's the main course." More than 100 high explosive crossbow bolts shot out, shooting straight into the lake. The entire surface of the lake was instantly covered in high temperature and flames. The fire dragon and water dragon danced together, the violent shockwave shattering the organs of the beast spirits. This wave of fierce attack was like throwing a bomb into the water filled with fish, instantly killing and injuring a large number of fish. Activate the launcher. The Miracle Commerce staff opened a rectangular box. This launcher was actually a honeycomb-shaped launcher. When the Miracle Commerce staff activated the launcher, waves after waves of bombs were fired into the sky. They were very concentrated on the water and instantly caused a chain of explosions. Too terrifying. How was this a war? This was simply a one-sided slaughter. The 3 waves of attacks were very short, not giving the warhounds any time to react. Several tens of thousands of warhound soldiers died and almost all the warhound soldiers were heavily injured. However, the warhound soldiers were very strong. Although they fell into the water, they wildly swam forward, charging forward without a care for their lives. They used their spirit energy to block the attacks, not caring about the cost to take back the boats. The warhounds were much stronger than the southern summer country. There were many peak awakened soul cultivators among these warhound soldiers. This was a very dangerous fight for these trapped beasts, so they couldn't be careless. They were getting closer and closer. Fire! The southern summer archers began to attack. Bullets of light and arrows kept falling into the water, slaughtering the spirit beasts in the water. The warhounds were already in a sorry state, how could they withstand this kind of intense and concentrated attack? The number of casualties kept increasing and the blood of the warhounds turned the surface of the lake murky. At this time, roar! A warhounds expert jumped out of the water. It was the true spirit realm chief accompanying the army. He held a long blade in each hand as he slashed out at the warship in front of him. When that resplendent blade light slashed out, the surface of the lake was split apart. It was separated by over 100 meters as it slammed into the warship. Hong! The immense power stirred up the entire fleet. The entire warship was split into 3 pieces. Everyone's expressions changed. This warship was several dozen meters long and it was even larger than a tall building. The warship itself was incomparably sturdy, but there was actually a person that could split it apart. This kind of strength was enough to shock people, truly worthy of being a warhound's expert. Kill! The warhound's warriors do not fear death. The warhound's chief roared out in a hysterical voice, "We'll stake it all with them." The warhounds suffered heavy casualties, but the more desperate the situation was, the fiercer the spirit beast's nature would be. The warhounds experts all used their spirit energy to jump out of the water. They stepped on the debris on the surface of the lake and quickly ran like they were walking on water. They were like a group of water spiders as they approached the southern summer warships. An injured beast was the most dangerous. These people were already prepared to perish together with the southern summer country. Over half of the 600,000 warhound soldiers had been eaten by the fish. Even if the remaining warhounds attacked with all their might, the threat could not be underestimated. Young Miss, activate the source energy cannon. Meng Qinggu had already been waiting for the order, so she immediately activated the source energy cannon on the flagship. This source energy cannon was made of a precious third-level metal and was a dark silver color. The smooth surface was covered in runes and the structure was very precise, just like a work of art. Big Sister Bing, give me the cannonball. Chen Bingyu threw a cannonball that was thicker than an arm over. Chu Tian placed the entire source energy cannonball into the cannon and the markings on the cannon lit up. An incomparably strong energy condensed in the cannon and an incomparably dazzling light was released from the cannon's muzzle. A true spirit expert was too fast. It was hard to lock onto them with the naked eye. The source energy cannon was very strong and Chu Tian only had one chance because once he failed, the enemy would be alerted and be on guard. It would be hard to succeed again, so he had to succeed on his first try. Mind's lamp, ignite. Chu Tian's divine sense locked onto the enemy and he suddenly activated the source energy cannon. With a heaven-shattering sound, the empty cannonball shell was shot out and a wave of white light shot out like a meteor. It tore through the sky and tore through the void. With a speed several times faster than the speed of sound, it instantly hit the true spirit expert. Fast. Too fast. It was already too late for the Warhound's chief to react. When the white light swept past him, half of his body disappeared. A respected true spirit expert. He had actually been killed by the enemy's strange weapon. It was this clean, without the slightest bit of hesitation. It simply made people's hairs stand on end. It wasn't just the Warhounds that were stunned, even the Southern Summer soldiers found it hard to believe. This kind of small kingdom did not have many true spirit realm experts and each true spirit realm expert was no different from a spiritual god in their eyes. This kind of incomparably strong existence had actually died to a weapon that Chu Tian had made in less than half a month. Chen Bingyu handed over another cannonball. Chu Tian placed the energy cannonball into the cannon and did not give the Warhounds much time to prepare. He immediately aimed the cannon at the lake and fired it again. The cannon released an intense flame and another large wave of energy shot out. Dong! That terrifying temperature of several 100,000 degrees instantly evaporated a large part of the lake. The terrifying energy wave caused a second explosion and several hundred Warhound soldiers lost their lives in the explosion. This time, even the most valiant of warriors would collapse. In the eyes of the Warhound soldiers, Chu Tian was not a person at all. He was a demon, a terrifying war demon, a cruel slaughter demon. Chapter 703. The southern summer imperial city was filled with the Warhound's banners. The imperial city had fallen and all resistance had been killed. The imperial city had been in chaos for several days and a quarter of the 7-8 million people had died in the chaos. The rest had chosen to surrender and pledge their loyalty. The Warhounds had looted and burned for several days and nights. The wealth and resources accumulated by the families in Imperial City over 100 years had all become the Fang King's spoils of war. The fierce demon wolf cavalry had quickly captured the Imperial region and several dozen cities in Song State. Now over 40 million southern summer citizens had become the Warhounds' vassals. Wang Tianlong was high-spirited. This was because after the Fang King occupied the Imperial region, he immediately made Wang Tianlong the new king. Through Wang Tianlong's human identity, he could rule the southern summer citizens, which was much easier than the Fang King personally ruling. After all, these humans had lived on this land for generations and had a deep hatred for the northern spirit beasts, so it was not easy to directly rule them. So what if he was a vassal king? It was not something a marquis could compare to. Wang Tianlong got what he wanted. Now, his biggest wish was to take back all the remaining lands that were struggling at death's door. Other than that, there was another matter that was stuck in Wang Tianlong's throat. Chu Tian. He didn't know why, but he felt that as long as Chu Tian didn't die, he would not be able to sleep peacefully. When the scouts brought back news, Chu Tian had indeed escaped to Central State. He had even pushed Dongfang Gan onto the throne and was preparing to fight against the Great Summer Country. Wang Tianlong was so angry that he smashed a cup. He immediately notified Nangong Ling, who was now a ruler, and the two of them quickly entered the royal palace, preparing to report to the Fang King. The Fang King was currently receiving an envoy from the Eagle Burial Kingdom. This Eagle Burial envoy was covered in a black robe, only revealing a pair of sharp eyes. Even with the Fang King's incomparably respected status, he still had to show some respect to this person. The Eagle Burial envoy first praised the Fang King a few times. "Your Highness has ruled the warhounds and quickly destroyed the southern summer country. The king has high praise for this and will properly reward you after the battle. I hope your Highness will continue to expand south, allowing the Eagle Burial Kingdom's southern territory to reach the Forest of Chaos." With one large and one small kingdom joining in, the Eagle Burial Kingdom's influence will increase by another step. The king might even become an emperor in 100 years. The Fang King did not care about these questions and only asked, "Have the Eagle Burial Kingdom's reinforcements arrived?" "Your Highness has asked for 100,000 reinforcements, but the Eagle Burial Kingdom is fighting all over and all sides are shocked. The southern summer imperial city has already been destroyed and there are only a few people left, but against a powerful army, why would we need 100,000 reinforcements?" Although the vulture cavalry is not the Eagle Burial Kingdom's trump card, it is still a very precious aerial force. We can only send 20,000 cavalry at most. This is already our limit. Your Highness, please don't make it hard. The Fang King was a bit unhappy. Although the southern summer country can't even take a single blow, there is a large difference between the north and south of the southern summer country. My demon wolf cavalry cannot cross the mountains and rivers, so we need a large-scale aerial force to quickly end this battle. Your Highness is too cautious. The Eagle Burial envoy disagreed. Even if the demon wolf cavalry cannot fight, you still have the several 100,000 soldiers from the Warhound Plains and the remaining 10,000 vulture cavalry. Adding in the 20,000 vulture cavalry, even if we don't use any tactics, we can still break through a few normal southern summer cities. The Fang King gave a snort. Your Highness wanting to end this battle quickly isn't wrong, but you have to consider the kingdom's overall situation. For a southern summer that can't rise again, you don't need to invest too much of the Eagle Burial Kingdom's battle strength. The Eagle Burial envoy said this and then suddenly added, "You don't need to be too anxious. The king has given us 3 months of time, so no matter how hard we humans defend, 3 months is more than enough." The Eagle Burial envoy left the palace after giving his orders. His sharp eyes swept over Wang Tianlong and Nangong Ling, revealing a look of ridicule and disdain. Were these lowly humans worthy of being the Eagle Burial Kingdom's opponents? This Highness really didn't know what was good for him. 100,000 vulture cavalry. Wasn't this just nonsense? It was hard for a large kingdom to use a 100,000 aerial army. Now that they were dealing with a small kingdom, a dying one at that, he actually asked for 100,000 reinforcements. If it wasn't for unifying the warhounds and winning 2 battles, making the king give him a bit of face, he couldn't even think about 20,000 reinforcements. The Fang King softly asked, "Have you investigated the matter I asked you to investigate?" Nangong Ling quickly cupped his hands and said, "We've investigated the strange weapons used by the southern summer defenders. These are special equipment manufactured in a secret factory near Imperial City." A glow flashed in the Fang King's eyes. It really is a mass-produced weapon. Such a weak small kingdom actually has such a sharp new weapon. Have you found the blueprints or production staff? Also, I've heard that the southern summer humans have invented something that can communicate over 1,000 miles and broadcast sound. Have you found this technology yet? We asked the Fang King to punish us. Nangong Yun said in a terrified voice, "These new technologies have not been around for long and they are all in Miracle Commerce's hands. Now all the equipment in the city has been destroyed and the secret factory outside the city has been heavily damaged, so we can't find anything of value for now. Waste." The Fang King slapped Nangong Ling into the wall. Nangong Ling did not dare resist and could only kowtow to accept his punishment. Fang King, calm your anger. Wang Tianlong respectfully bowed down. I've received news that Chu Tian's group has escaped to the south and is currently in Central State. As long as we catch him, everything will be in our hands. In the Imperial City battle, the fierce firepower of the Source Energy submachine guns and the shocking might of the Source Energy bombs had left a deep impression on the Fang King. The Fang King thought it was a secret treasure at first, but who would have thought that after investigating, it was actually a mass-produced weapon. This made the Fang King very excited. If he could obtain this kind of equipment, the Eagle Burial Kingdom's strength would increase by several times. It would be too easy for them to become an emperor. We've searched the merchant caravans and stored ships, so we've already gathered enough. Wang Tianlong knelt down on one knee. Please give the order. As long as Central State falls, the last resistance of the southern summer country will collapse. At that time, the 200 million southern summer citizens will all become subjects of the Warhound's kingdom, forever farming and producing for the Fang King. The Fang King was a bit hesitant. Today's position was not obtained through bravery. The Fang King was not only a peak expert, he was also a clear-headed commander. He did not let two large victories go to his head, rather he calmly analyzed the situation. Without a doubt, the remaining Southern Summer Army could not even block the Warhounds, not to mention the Eagle Burial Kingdom Army. But now they were facing two variables. The first was the terrain variable. The second was the unexpected variable. The Warhounds would have to pass through the Four States Lake if they continued south, but the Warhounds were not good at fighting in the water. Moreover, the ships they stole from the Southern Summer merchants and the old warships in the warehouse could not compare to the Southern Summer warships. If they fought on the Four States Lake, the Warhounds might not have an advantage. Other than that, did the Southern Summer countries still have those powerful weapons? Once this weapon was used in a water battle, it would have a strong killing effect. This was something they had to be guarded against. Wang Tianlong was filled with doubt. Whether it is our numbers or strength, we have an overwhelming advantage. What is the Fang King worried about? All right. The Fang King made his decision. Immediately pass down my orders. The Demon Wolf Cavalry will stay behind and the rest of the army will prepare to head south. Understood. Wang Tianlong revealed a look of joy and immediately asked, then what is the strategy? The Fang King had already thought of a strategy. You will lead the 600,000 warhounds to head south. The fleet cannot be concentrated and will be divided into 5 fleets of 100,000 people. They will take different routes and land at different locations in Central State. The Southern Summer Country's army is weaker than our army, so their only chance of victory is to defeat us on the water. However, their army is not as large as ours, so we will scatter to land and make it difficult for them. At most we will attack 1 or 2 locations and most of the army will be able to land. Wang Tianlong's eyes lit up. Splitting the army to land is one of the strategies. It is a strong attack. The Fang King continued, I will lead the 30,000 vulture cavalry and the various tribe chiefs from Tsang State. We will pass through the mountains to the north of Central State and launch a surprise attack on Central State City. A surprise attack and a strong attack, using both methods. How could Central State City stop them? The Southern Summer Country had lost 2 battles, but they did not lose unjustly. The Fang King was an experienced commander, his strategies were always impeccable. At least from Wang Tianlong's point of view, Central State City would definitely die in this battle. The Central State Army's battle strength could be ignored. The Southern Summer Country had 300,000 cavalry, but their overall strength could not compare to the Warhounds, so they had no chance of winning in a head-on clash. As long as the Warhounds' army landed, they would forcefully attack Central State City. The Warhounds would split into 5 groups. Even if Central State sent out all their forces to intercept them on the water, the Warhounds were not good at fighting on the water and their ships were old, so they could only intercept 1 or 2 groups. The other groups would be able to surround Central State City. This was already very hard to break. Not to mention that in the Fang King's strategy, there was a hidden surprise attack. He would personally lead the air force from the north, crossing over the mountains to launch a surprise attack on Central State. No matter how good the calm martial ruler's tactics were, if he wanted to intercept the Warhound's army of 600,000, it was impossible if he didn't send out all his forces. But once he sent out all his forces, Central State City would be very empty. Under the surprise attack of 30,000 aerial troops, Central State City would definitely fall. If Central State City fell, no matter how beautiful the battle on the Four States Lake was, it would be meaningless. The fall of Central State was an inevitable result. The Fang King was truly worthy of being the Eagle Burial Empire's king. He could think of such a detailed and ruthless plan in this short period of time. Wang Tianlong and Nangong Ling were filled with confidence. Although Dongfang Gan's military talent did not lose to the Fang King's, in a situation where both sides were at the same level, strength was the deciding factor. The Fang King watched the two of them leave. Chapter 704. The situation had been decided. The Warhound's army was utterly defeated. The first wave of explosions killed over 100,000 people, the following waves of explosions killed over 100 to 200,000 people, and the large-scale shooting and continuous bombardment killed over 100,000 people. A super army of 600,000 people. How many of them were left? The Warhounds were not afraid of death, but in this situation, they did not have any chance of winning at all, they did not even have a foothold. The unprecedented large killing machine source energy cannons had completely destroyed the morale and confidence of the Warhounds. They had lost. They had completely lost. It's about time. Chu Tian felt that there would not be any more changes. Release the chains and charge forward with all your strength. Don't take any prisoners, kill them all. Chu Tian's cold voice was like the shadow of a death god that shrouded the hearts of the Warhounds. Was Chu Tian a bloodthirsty person? Of course not. But Chu Tian was not soft-hearted. The battle strength of these Warhound soldiers was more than 2 streets ahead of the southern summer country's main force. If they were allowed to live, they would only cause trouble for the southern summer country. If he killed all 600,000 people at once, the Warhound's planes would not be able to recover for 3-5 years. They would not be able to invade the south again. Kill to stop killing. They could only do this. After all, Chu Tian was a human. The southern summer warships released the chains and the warships began to move forward at the same time. Source energy bullets and powerful arrows filled the sky, harvesting the lives of the Warhound soldiers. When a battle reached this step, even if they had several true spirit experts, it would be useless. The Warhound's army of 600,000 was destined to be annihilated on the Four States Lake. We're retreating. Wang Tianlong knew that there was no hope for this battle. Large amounts of arrows and bullets wildly rained down, making Wang Tianlong's heart turn cold. He could only pull Nangong Ling and retreat. The Warhounds had the Eagle Burial Kingdom behind them, so even if they lost all their soldiers, as long as the Eagle Burial Kingdom was here, the southern summer country would not dare attack the imperial region. Where there's life, there's hope. Chu Tian revealed a cold smile seeing this. Want to escape? How could it be that easy? Whether it was the frontline defense or the fall of Imperial City, Wang Tianlong had played an important role. What Chu Tian hated the most in his life were traitors, not to mention that this fellow had brought him and Miracle Commerce this much trouble. I'll leave Nangong Ling to you and leave this Wang Tianlong to me. Chu Tian, the Divine Wind Marquis, and Chen Bingyu jumped off the warship at the same time. Chu Tian stepped on the floating wooden planks and charged at Wang Tianlong like a meteor. He pulled out the netherworld sword from his back and the blade that was as smooth as a mirror was instantly covered in flames. Flickering flame slash. A burning and resplendent sword light arrived in an instant. When Wang Tianlong felt the sharp sword chi coming straight at his back, he leaped forward, turned around in the air, and stabbed out with his spear. The instant the spear light and the sword chi collided, the pressure caused the surrounding lake water to explode. countless drops of water fell down. The two of them landed on different floating objects, facing each other several meters apart. Wang Tianlong's face turned terrifying. He never thought that Chu Tian would not only come back alive from Imperial City, he would also make such a large progress. He was now a late-stage awakened soul cultivator. Chu Tian raised his sword and pointed it at him. What goes around comes around. Didn't you feel good chasing father around Wang Yu? Now it's time to pay the interest. With just you. Don't think that you can compete with me just by increasing your cultivation base a bit. Wang Tianlong raised the spear in his hand and the spirit energy around him began to ripple. You don't have those corpses by your side, do you think you can still defeat me? Die. Wang Tianlong raised the spear with both hands and stabbed forward. The lake water began to surge and formed 4-5 flood dragons that charged at Chu Tian at the same time. Flame Demon Transformation. While Chu Tian was moving back, his body was suddenly covered in flames and he instantly turned into an incomparably tall demon. The powerful energy released from his body instantly evaporated the water dragons around him. A large flaming sword slashed at Wang Tianlong. Before the sword even reached him, the fierce and cold sword chi actually froze the surrounding lake. When Chu Tian used the flame demon transformation before, he had to spend a long time accumulating netherworld ghost flames, but now he could instantly use it. It could be said that he had made a large progress. Wang Tianlong's talent was around the same as Chu Xinghe's. When Chu Tian's cultivation base was lower, he could still use the flame demon transformation to defeat Chu Xinghe. If Wang Tianlong wanted to block it, it wouldn't be that easy. Flood Dragon Protection. Wang Tianlong's body was covered in mist as countless golden flood dragons quickly moved around him. Those golden figures moved back and forth, forming a golden cover around Wang Tianlong. Chu Tian's sword slashed at Wang Tianlong and the surrounding lake water evaporated, but Wang Tianlong's body was not injured at all. You can't break my defense. Wang Tianlong roared out as he stabbed out with his spear. The flame demon's body was pierced through. Break for me. The flame demon's body was shattered by the fierce strength. Meng Qinggu saw this from afar and she couldn't help covering her mouth. A peak 9th awakened soul layer cultivator was too strong, he could actually break Chu Tian's flame demon transformation. She knew that the essence of Chu Tian's flame demon transformation was to release the weapon spirit's power and fuse it with his body. Although the flame demon transformation could increase his strength by a large amount, once the flame demon transformation was broken, Chu Tian's netherworld sword would be weakened for a period of time and he wouldn't even be able to use his normal strength. Wang Tianlong was not pleased for long. Because he found that the netherworld ghost flames that had been scattered had all gathered around Chu Tian's body under some kind of gravitational force. The several feet tall flame demon had turned into a 2-meter tall flame demon. The current Chu Tian, from head to toe, from his arms to his weapons, was completely covered in a layer of netherworld ghost flames. Only this layer of flames did not scatter and it was like an armor covering Chu Tian's body. He looked like a blue and white crystal statue. Wang Tianlong's pupils shrank. This is. Chu Tian's low and deep voice came from the crystal statue. This is a new move I've created, the second state of the flame demon transformation. The flame demon transformation was a secret technique Chu Tian developed based on the demon and god 9 transformations. It allowed Chu Tian to combine with the weapon spirit netherworld, increasing his strength by a large amount. After Chu Tian's cultivation base became a substitute, he had modified this secret technique and created this second state. The first state's specialty was to become bigger, increasing its destructive power and attack range. The second state's specialty was to become smaller, decreasing its attack power, but increasing its flexibility and defensive power. Boring. It's useless no matter how many tricks you use. Wang Tianlong thrust his spear at Chu Tian. Die. Chu Tian's figure swayed. Ripples appeared on the surface of the water. Chu Tian instantly disappeared, leaving behind a sonic boom in the air. The spear glow created a giant wave on the surface of the lake, but it didn't even touch Chu Tian's clothes. Such a fast speed. Perhaps it had already surpassed the speed of sound. Wang Tianlong was shocked. This speed was not inferior to his, it was even a bit faster than Wang Tianlong's. But this was impossible. Chu Tian was only in the 7th awakened soul layer, how could he be this fast? So. A sword slashed at his back. Wang Tianlong quickly raised his spear and stabbed back. Chu Tian retreated as soon as he touched it, not having any intentions of fighting. Wang Tianlong's main cultivation technique was defensive, so he didn't have a fast movement speed. Now that Chu Tian's speed was this fast, Wang Tianlong had no way of attacking him. Chu Tian clearly saw the flaw in Wang Tianlong's cultivation technique. Wang Tianlong's defensive cultivation technique was very strong, but once Wang Tianlong used this cultivation technique, only a true spirit realm expert could break through it. Even Chu Tian couldn't do this, at least not with the strength of the 7th to 8th awakened soul layer. However, this cultivation technique had a clear flaw, which was that it consumed too much energy. In other words, this defensive cultivation technique was very strong and it could be used to defend, making it hard for people to touch it. But to maintain this defense, it needed to burn a large amount of spirit energy. Chu Tian did not need to attack, he just needed to stall for time. When Wang Tianlong ran out of spirit energy, he would break it in one fell swoop. Wang Tianlong brandished his spear as he furiously attacked. But Chu Tian's speed was above his and Chu Tian's divine sense was also above his, so he could predict the enemy's movements, not letting Wang Tianlong touch a single hair on his body. Time passed minute by minute. Chu Tian did not consume too much energy, but Wang Tianlong was already feeling like he couldn't hold on anymore. This defensive cultivation technique was different from the Starlight Immortal Body. Before the Starlight Immortal Body was attacked, it would not consume energy at all, but Wang Tianlong's cultivation technique was constantly consuming energy. This was not a long-term defensive cultivation technique, rather it was used to save his life at a critical moment. Damn! He couldn't keep fighting. The current situation was very disadvantageous to Wang Tianlong. If he kept fighting, even if he wasn't defeated by Chu Tian, he would still be surrounded by the Southern Summer King's army. I'll take your dog head another day. Wang Tianlong angrily said this sentence and was about to escape. However, how could he lose it so easily? Not long after Wang Tianlong left, a large amount of dark red needles shot out of the water. They instantly pierced through Wang Tianlong's protective spirit energy and landed on his body. Wang Tianlong gave a pitiful cry. That strong defense instantly revealed a flaw. Good chance. Chu Tian's legs stepped on the water and with the speed of the Flame Demon Transformation's 2nd layer, he released the Netherworld Raging Flame Slash, increasing his speed even further. That sword glow was like a sharp beam of light as it instantly slashed across Wang Tianlong's neck. Wang Tianlong's eyes opened wide. He felt like he was flying and the entire world was spinning. When he looked down, he saw a headless body that had been slashed by the bright sword glow. Am I dead? If he knew this would happen, he wouldn't have chosen this path. This was the last thought that remained in Wang Tianlong's mind. Chu Tian had used a trivial 7th awakened soul layer cultivation to kill a peak 9th awakened soul layer cultivator. On the other side, the Divine Wind Marquis and Chen Bingyu had worked together to kill Nan Gongling without any suspense. 2 traitors had been killed at the same time and the 600,000 Warhounds army had been completely annihilated. The southern summer country had been defeated twice. 1 million soldiers had been killed, the imperial city had been taken, the imperial region had fallen, the marshal had died, and the southern summer king had been killed. All of this humiliation had finally ended. Chapter 705. The Warhounds could attack at any time. The development of Central State could not be slow. Meng Qingguo had been observing the data from all sides and she had to admit that war was the strongest catalyst for the development of a civilization. With the threat of the Warhounds, the entire Central State was united. In just a short half a month, not only had everyone's cultivation base increased by a level, the central state Yun sect continued to produce results, and the industrial development increased by leaps and bounds. With all the resources from all sides working together, the production efficiency had increased by around 3 times. Not bad, very good. With this speed, if the warhounds gave them another 10 days to half a month, Central State would be impregnable and the warhounds would not be able to easily break through. Meng Qingwu's biggest headache was not the warhounds in the north. Miracle Commerce's new strategy had already been decided, and the Forest of Chaos would be the place where Miracle Commerce would truly rise. Only how to enter this area was Miracle Commerce's #1 problem. Chu Tian's method was too risky. The elves were a race with a strong sense of defense and did not trust outsiders, so they were closed off and rejected them. Meng Qingwu thought that if they wanted to gain the elves' trust and support, they had to slowly eliminate the elves' suspicions and let them recognize Miracle Commerce and accept them. Chu Tian directly pulled Princess Vivian into his group, not leaving any room for negotiation. Did he consider Vivian's identity? Did he really consider the feelings of the elves' conservative faction? This would not be able to win the elves over to become allies, rather it would cause the elves to be hostile towards them. What were they busy with right now? Meng Qingwu took out the communication device to contact Yingying and found out that Yingying was with Chu Tian and Vivian, currently in the Yun sect. What were they doing in the Yun sect? Meng Qingwu curiously went over to see what was going on. Chu Tian had opened a special laboratory for Vivian and was currently teaching the little princess how to use this super modern laboratory. This is the spatial laboratory that the Yun sect has specially prepared for Vivian. I'll leave it to you to manage after tonight. When Chu Tian said this, his voice suddenly changed. To make it easier for you to work, I'll have the young miss and Yingying assist you. Vivian had a look of pleasant surprise as she touched the laboratory here and there. There were quite a few new things here that couldn't be seen in the elven tribes. Vivian had just been accepted into Miracle Commerce by Chu Tian and she already had a special laboratory. Her identity became even stronger. Ah, what did you say? Vivian was suddenly stunned. How can this be? Yingying and elder sister Qingwu are the founders of Miracle Commerce and I'm just a newcomer. Vivian was already used to calling Meng Qingwu elder sister, even though she was old enough to be Meng Qingwu's grandmother. Meng Qingwu also gave a bitter smile. Those with ability come first, little princess doesn't need to be modest. But... Vivian scratched her head in an embarrassed manner as her white cheeks turned red. Although I've lived for 14 elven years, I can't even compare to Yingying in terms of knowledge. Not to mention managing a laboratory, I'm afraid I can't even be a normal researcher. This was definitely the truth. Meng Yingying had copied Meng Qingwu's heavenly book source spirit to increase her learning ability, so her knowledge would not lose to a normal Yun sect scholar. On the other hand, Vivian was several times Yingying's age, but she had lived in the elven environment since she was young, so how could she have the mind to study? Vivian's strength could not compare to anyone, but her knowledge was far inferior. Meng Qingwu was very curious. Little Princess Vivian was not good at science, so why did she prepare a laboratory? What was Chu Tian thinking? Vivian was very embarrassed. How about this laboratory? We don't need it for now. My cultivation base is not bad, so if you want to fight, I might be able to help. Let's say it like this. Even if you invite the most knowledgeable old scholar of your elven race, there wouldn't be much of a difference in my eyes. You have a special potential that normal people don't have. Chu Tian encouraged Vivian. You are unique. I believe you can do things that other people can't do. Vivian's heart was instantly moved to the point of bursting. She was synonymous with trouble in the elven tribe and even she had given up on herself. She never thought that there would be someone who appreciated her this much, not to mention that this person was her most respected idol. What special potential do I have? Your innate spatial energy. What Chu Tian wanted to teach Vivian was actually the knowledge of the spatial system. This was a hard-to-form knowledge in 20,000 years. Whether it was a world-famous scholar or a normal person like Vivian, there was no difference. In order to let you have a deeper understanding of your own potential, I will first arrange a small mission for you. Chu Tian gave a set of very complicated blueprints to Vivian. This is the third-level spatial source energy array's blueprint. Your first task is to complete the array and you'll understand my meaning at that time. Spatial source energy array. Everyone was shocked. They had heard of fire source energy arrays, wind source energy arrays, and ice source energy arrays. As for spatial source energy arrays, they had never heard of them before. It could even be said to be a fantasy. Spatial energy was recognized as the hardest attribute to control. Wanting to use a source energy array to create spatial energy, was this really possible? Vivian held the complicated blueprints and said, "What kind of array does this have?" Chu Tian gave Vivian an encouraging look. "Don't ask too much, just give it a try." No matter how bad one's knowledge was, they still had the basic ability to draw a source energy array. Chu Tian had already given a detailed blueprint and Vivian just needed to draw the array according to the blueprint. With her true spirit realm and mind's lamp realm divine sense, this was not a hard thing to do. This source energy array was clearly not normal. The materials Chu Tian prepared were all precious level 3 materials. Other than that, he used 4 giant source energy batteries to form a system to replenish the energy of this source energy array. "I'm going to start." Vivian's little face tensed up. This was her first time showing her strength. She couldn't drop the ball at this critical moment. She released her divine sense. The strength of her divine sense was no weaker than Chu Tian's. In fact, it was even a bit stronger than Chu Tian's. After scanning the blueprint once, every detail was memorized in her mind. Rise! The crystal stone pen was raised. Vivian directly used her divine sense to control it, drawing it on a piece of stone specially used to hold source energy arrays. After around 30 minutes, a complex and complete spatial source energy array was formed. Meng Qinggu found it hard to hide the shock in her heart when she saw the source energy array. Meng Qinggu was not a simple woman, she could be considered half a disciple of Chu Tian. Of miracle commerce's current technology, the only one who had a complete grasp of it was Meng Qinggu. Meng Qinggu's strong learning ability and heavenly book memories allowed her to surpass top scholars like Gu Qianqiu and Yun Tianhe in a short period of time. This spatial source energy array was something she had never heard of before. It wasn't that Meng Qinggu had never seen a level 3 array before, but she had never seen one this complex. All of the components and structures were very unique. If this array was seen by those old things, they would go crazy from excitement. Vivian wiped her sweat and said with a face filled with surprise, "This is the most complex source energy array I've ever seen, but what use does it have?" "Don't worry." Chu Tian said to Meng Yingying who was beside him, "Yingying, help me turn on the energy pillars." "All right." Meng Yingying quickly turned on the switch of the source energy batteries. The 4 energy pillars simultaneously released a powerful energy. After the complex spatial array was activated, it instantly transformed into an incredible amount of energy. The violent energy waves interfered with the spatial fluctuations. When the spatial distortion became more and more intense, it unexpectedly created a black hole-like hole. This is, Meng Qinggu and Meng Yingying couldn't feel it, but Vivian clearly felt it. This black hole-like spatial structure is a stable subspace, similar to the storage space in storage equipment. My God, it's too big, it's at least 10 feet wide and tall. What did you say? Meng Qingwu's eyes almost popped out. This is a storage space. Vivian's face was filled with excitement as she nodded. That's right, I understand. This source energy array's use is to create a stable subspace. I have never seen such a mysterious source energy array before. It can actually create a stable subspace. Once this subspace is formed, it is no different from a storage equipment. How expensive was a storage equipment? It could be considered priceless. In the entire southern summer country, there weren't many storage equipment like this. The reason why storage equipment was so precious was because they were all made from spatial materials that contained spatial energy. This kind of material could not be found in the entire continent. Now that Chu Tian had easily created a subspace, it was actually so big, it was hard to imagine. Chu Tian said with a nod, "This is a subspace formation array, it is used to create a small subspace. The more energy it provides, the larger the subspace. We can completely rely on this technology to create a space warehouse. But compared to storage equipment, the space warehouse's flexibility is far inferior. This technology has a lot of prospects." Chu Tian gave a simple introduction. "I'll give you an example. We can easily transport items to any corner of the continent through the subspace. This also means that if we store things here, we can open a subspace on the other side of the continent and take them out." This was more than just prospects. If Chu Tian's communication technology could allow the exchange of information on the continent, then this spatial technology could allow the exchange of materials, allowing products from all over the world to flow quickly. Not only did it contain a large business opportunity, it would also lead to an irresistible revolution. "I have a complete theoretical foundation, but the technology is not stable enough." Chu Tian looked at little Princess Vivian. "I need your talent and ability to perfect this great technology with me. This spatial research room is for this. Are you willing to accept this job?" Vivian was at a loss for words. She had only joined Miracle Commerce for a day. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.